in order to push it forward. So I think it just shows the dysfunction that we have. And I understand what Mike's saying. I happen to disagree with him. I don't want to see it that it's a revenue problem. Yeah, California might need to change the way it finances itself, but we have folks up there that have an addiction to spending, including Republicans. Jim is right. So we have some challenges, and I believe that in order for the next governor to succeed, there needs to be electoral reform in California.
Senator, thank you. We'll be back with more LA Roundtable in just a minute with a guest with another perspective, so don't go away.
I've been thinking. You're not prepared for an earthquake. Take this antique vase your mom got you. If the big one hit, it'll be a goner. Or this clay penguin you made in 3rd grade. History. By simply strapping loose furniture to the wall and putting putty under loose items, you can prevent serious injury and damage. Nothing is safe. Even poor Uncle Petey. Get the message? Be prepared.
I got you something very special for our 1st anniversary. Now close your eyes. Surprise! It's an emergency preparedness kit. Isn't it great? It's got food, water, first aid kit, and this neat emergency tool for shutting off utilities. Honey, we are going to be prepared for any emergency. Honey? Sweetie, I have one more surprise. This really cool cranking flashlight.
Get the message? Be prepared.
Welcome back to LA Roundtable and our discussion of California's dysfunctional state government. I want to thank Senator Abel Maldonado for having been part of the panel in the first half of the show, and welcome Joel Fox. Joel is former president of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, the group which spearheaded the passage of Proposition 13 and many other tax reform measures. He's now a lecturer in public policy at Pepperdine University. Well, you've heard a lot of discussion already about Prop 13. The charge is that it's in large part responsible for the fiscal mess that California is in. I know you don't agree.
Charge has been made for 30 years, and I guess I've disagreed for 30 years. A couple of points on Proposition 13. First of all, let's remember the environment when it came about, and people losing their homes to uncontrolled taxes. Proposition 13 put a control on those taxes, and it did it in such a way that not only are people not losing their homes, but the property tax is the most stable of all taxes in California. It goes up until this tremendous mortgage crisis. It's been going up steadily in Los Angeles County, 7% a year. That's above inflation. We have more property tax revenue than we ever had before in constant dollars. So I think the change has been positive both as a protection for the taxpayer, and it hasn't cheated the local governments. Saying that, some of the earlier discussion, I do agree there has to be some restructuring of the tax system.
Including Prop 13, or you excluding it?
I would exclude it because, as I just described, I think it's working well.
Well, I think if you're talking about restructuring the tax system, but you're leaving Proposition 13 alone, that's like saying we're going to restructure the auto industry, but we're not going to touch Ford, GM, or Chrysler. I mean, this Proposition 13 is the ballgame. The reason that we have this over-reliance on the income tax is because of Proposition 13. The reason why we have an over-reliance on the sales tax is because of Proposition 13. And I think Joel made my point for me. The property tax is the most stable source of revenue for a government unit, particularly a local government unit, and we've spent 30 years trying to maneuver our ways around the rocks in the river that Proposition 13 gave us. We had, just in the last few months, an op-ed, I think it was in the Los Angeles Times, by a government official from San Diego who said, since Proposition 13, one of the things it did was it took budgeting power away from the localities and gave it to Sacramento, and that's been the cause of a lot of mischief. It's meant that we here in San Diego haven't been able to get the money to fix our streetlights and pave our roads, because every time we want to do that, we discover that the money that our property taxpayers are sending to Sacramento is being used to close the state budget deficit. All of the maneuvering that followed Prop 13, the swaps, the backfills, and all that, these are all signs that there was something fundamentally wrong with that initiative and that legislation, and we have never, ever come to grips with it. And the longer our political leaders talk about how it's the third rail of California politics, the voters won't stand for altering it, we can't touch it, the deeper that misconception, as I think it is, gets instilled in the electorate, and the harder it is to do what we have to do. I mean, even the idea of a split roll of assessing commercial and industrial properties in a different way from residential properties seems to be untouchable. It seems to me to be one of the most sensible things we can do to help close the budget gap and redress the imbalance of how commercial and industrial taxpayers fund the budget compared to residential taxpayers. Why aren't we talking about this more seriously?
I think anyone in politics understands they are working for the electorate, and the electorate sets the ground rules. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go back to the electorate and say, revisit this initiative that you passed 30 years ago. And I think parts of that might be open for revision, like the Prop 13 reduced the property tax by 2/3. So 2/3 of the money was eliminated. Bills and people's property taxes reflect that. They went down. The other third went from local government to Sacramento. So if you want to talk about returning that third back to local government, I think that has some merit. If you want to talk about increasing the property tax, particularly for residential homes, I just think no politician is going to get too close to that. But I do think there is a tax which could be expanded. And I know the governor's and Karen Bass's Committee on Revenue is looking at the sales tax, which could be lowered. The sales tax was put in place when we had an industrial society, and the bulk of economic activity was manufacturing. Now the bulk is services. The sales tax would be lowered. The state percentage of, say, LA County sales tax is about 5 cents. You lower that to 3, and then you expand that to law firms, accounting firms, car repair, haircuts, services would be covered by the sales tax. That's a very stable tax, and that could generate over time additional revenue. I think the public would be open to that kind of discussion.
In fact, that's the kind of structural reform that you can have without touching the property tax. The governor is talking about, where you will make the sales tax a much more stable tax, and you'll lower the, I think we're at the tipping point, where LA County, after this tax increase, is going to be almost 10% of the sales tax. As far as the comment that Mike made before I got here on whether Governor Schwarzenegger could have led a change on Proposition 13 particularly, I don't think that would have happened. I just don't believe that would have happened. You look at the polls today, 70% of the people want to keep that protection. Where Governor Schwarzenegger, I think, missed the boat, where he could have used his great following after the election, is if he had followed through with blowing up the boxes his term. The California Performance Review, which we served on, Jim and I, was an opportunity, I think, to reorganize government. And a lot of time was put into that, a lot of effort, and clearly what happened is we saw all the turf wars, everybody's standing up and saying, well, you don't want to take away my commission's important. But I believe people would have followed the governor at that point, and he backed away, and I think that's where he missed a golden opportunity.
I think one of the questions here is this a financial crisis? Do we need to restructure the tax system, which we've been talking about? Is it a political problem in terms of reorganizing redistricting, term limit reform, open primaries, or is it a problem of specific lack of leadership? We've mentioned Governor Schwarzenegger and others who have been running the state. Or is it some combination of all three?
I think it's a philosophical dispute. When I got elected, I took the view that I would do the best I could within the resources that the economy provided us. And as Jim correctly said, the first couple of years money was pouring in the transit. Nonetheless, some members of my party wanted to increase taxes further. I said I was not going to have anything to do with it. We have a record surplus as it is now. What do we need more taxes for? So, but my general view was, whatever the economy provided, we would do the best we could, meaning we can't solve every problem on earth. And we have to have priorities. What is the most important thing? I always felt education was the most important thing, and the first governor to put it in accountability, and now we have a high school exit exam and merit scholarships and a whole bunch of other things I'm proud of. But I made choices, and I tried to communicate to people that we were making choices. That is the heart of the dispute. Some people think if there's a problem, we should fix it. Ideally, that's true. But we work in a world of limits. We have limited resources, and the public is only going to tolerate so many times going back to them, asking them for more money.
But I think the public perception is that when things are good, when the economy is thriving, the attitude in Sacramento seems to be let the good times roll without any thought given to the long-range view.
That's right. That's why there has to be a rainy day fund and a spending cap. And while my reading of these two measures is they're not perfect, they probably get 80% of where I'd like to see the state go. The voters will have a chance on May 19th to enact those two measures, and that will help stabilize the system and get off this what I call feast or famine budgeting.
Spending cap, rainy day fund.
Right. So you can spend so much money every year. It's a combination of the average over the previous.
You take a 10-year rolling average increase in revenue, and you can spend no more than that in any given year. Any revenue that comes in above that spills over into a rainy day fund.
Okay.
You asked the question, do we have a political problem or a fiscal problem? You have two. The political problem is everybody overspends. No matter how much revenue you have, everybody overspends. The other problem is because we've overspent and now we have a fiscal problem, the problem is geometrically greater. So you have to deal with it in the short term and you have to deal with it in the long term. But no matter how high you take the tax rates up, unless you have an ability to cap people's ability to spend, everyone overspends. Everyone in government overspends.
In short, the Constitution has to preclude Republicans and Democrats from overspending and say to the people lobbying them, you have a wonderful program, but the Constitution won't let me fund it.
And there's a point where with the taxes, where it becomes counterproductive to continue to raise them, because there are reactions. We talked about human nature here. There's a human nature reaction to the taxes getting to a certain point. Will someone purchase? Will someone make that big purchase or not? Taxes will affect that. Taxes will affect business decisions. You want to split the property tax roll and make it more expensive to do business in California. Some businesses may say, well, let me build my next plant over the border. So those things all come into play. And I think the first step is, I agree with Governor Davis, the first step is getting that rainy day fund spending limit in place to try to put some controls on the ups and downs. So the first year, Governor, when you were in, and all of a sudden all the taxes went through the roof.
Right.
Under this plan were in place, they couldn't have spent all of that.
Right.
They could have spent, put it into a reserve, or they could have used it for one-time purposes. Paying down debt, good thing to do. They could have even given a rebate back to taxpayers. That's what this plan will allow them to do.
Sure. When Pete Wilson left office, the general fund budget was $57 billion. The second budget that Governor Davis signed into law was $78 billion. That's a 34% increase in spending over 2 years. And by the way, we had the money because the NASDAQ and the Dow had jumped up.
But we're still in the second.
Yeah, absolutely. But my point is, when you look across the rest of the country, we had increased spending 34%. The closest state to us was Massachusetts. They had only increased spending 19%. And because of the progressivity of our tax rates, and because markets move up and down the way they do, we get these huge spikes in revenue and we get these huge declines in revenue. So you have to find a way of evening them out.
But yet, despite what you're characterizing as the overspending, it doesn't seem that California has gotten much for the spending. I mean, you look at the infrastructure in the state, it's in pathetic condition. Many of the schools statewide are not doing well.
I don't disagree with you. And by the way, voters are very, very clear. When voters think they're getting bang for their buck, when they are happy with what government is spending their resources on, they have shown time and time again a willingness to vote to raise their own taxes. It's when they don't think their tax dollars are being spent efficiently and effectively that they react, in some cases horribly, to tax increases. I don't think we're getting our bang for our buck in in California, and
Where's the money going? All this overspending.
Well, I mean, we want to improve schools, so we say we want to encourage better people to join the teaching force, so we're going to give huge pay raises to teachers. But we haven't gotten rid of any teacher. We've simply taken those who are there who we don't think are good enough and given them raises. It's one of the reasons a lot of the Democrats in the legislature now are much more willing to cut education funding, because they don't see production in the schools. They just see a bunch of teachers getting higher pay raises.
The spirit of, I keep coming back to Michael's, one of his initial premises is that we don't have candor. We're not talking about choices that need to be made.
Yeah.
When I became governor, I increased teacher salaries so that the starting teacher who has to have a college degree got $35,000. Now, in the dot-com economy of 2000, $35,000 is not an overwhelming salary.
Not at all.
And in society, you get what you pay for. Now, a lot of times, people are very dedicated. They spend their own money, in addition to what they're paid, to help improve the educational opportunities for their children. And children are blessed to have a teacher like that. And sometimes the teacher is not as well motivated. But, you know, if you start paying people $50,000, $75,000 and treat them like professionals, hold them to higher standards, expect more of them, you'll see a result in the performance of the students.
Well, and let's just to draw a line from that, and once again to get back to this question of how do we calculate the tax on the citizens of California. I've had, my two children have gone through an entire K through 12 course. That's two of them in the state in the public schools. And I can tell you that maybe my income tax has been capped, but the cost of sending the kids to the public school and getting them the programs that make for a well-rounded high school graduate has gone sky high. The reason that every parent is constantly being dunned for extra money and contributions for sports, music, art, to pay for an extra teacher on the faculty. This is a cost. This is a cost that the middle class pays and the working class pays, because those are the taxpayers who are in the public school system. So when you say, well, gee, the wealthy can't support a higher tax rate, well, instead what's happened is that the wealthier citizens of this state, we're supposed to be concerned about how much they're paying, but we never seem to hear about how much more the middle class and the working class are paying for services that we all understand are necessary parts of public education. We're paying that, at the point of service, and let's calculate that, put all those numbers together, and then look at what the tax load is on the entire spectrum of taxpayers in the state, and I think you would find that it is not true that 1% of the taxpayers is paying that much, because it's being spread. They're not paying, they're instead shoving the cost down, all the way down to the least well-heeled people.
The hidden costs.
Yeah, but I want to be real clear.
They're not so hidden.
I want to be real clear. I don't want you to put words in my mouth. I didn't say the wealthy can't shoulder the burden they have. My point is, you have to recognize human nature. The wealthy are leaving the state. Bill Foley took Fidelity National Financial out of California. Tiger Woods grew up in this state. What did Tiger Woods do right before he turned pro and signed a $40 million contract with Nike? He left California. Where did he go? To Florida, because there's no income tax. Venus and Serena Williams grew up in Compton. They don't live in California today. Why? Because 9.3 at the time, it's now 10.3, 10.3% of $1 million is a lot of money. It's not that if you built a wall around California and you told the rich you can't leave, that would be one thing. But we have people who move. Human behavior is exactly what it is. In 1991, Pete Wilson proposed and the legislature enacted a bunker fuel tax. Doubled the bunker fuel tax. Now, I was in the legislature, didn't vote for it, didn't know what bunker fuel was.
What is a bunker fuel?
Bunker fuel is what ships use. You know what? These big tankers, I learned something. They can go around the world twice without refueling. We doubled the tax on bunker fuel. You know what happened? We ended up with less revenue than we had before. In fact, we ended up with no revenue because these ships, the captains and the ship owners changed their behavior. They refueled in Oregon and Washington, and they refueled in Ensenada. And the legislature, however well-meaning, thought they could double the tax and the money would double, and they didn't. And my point is, as long as you have 25% of your general fund reliant solely on the income tax of the top 1%, you should not be surprised when that 1% decides to leave because they can save $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year.
Okay,
And they are leaving.
but does that, in a sense, does the flip side of that verify what Michael is saying, which is we're overly reliant on the income tax, and hence it's much higher than it should be because we're not getting value from property taxes like other states are.
Well,
I mean, that was also
in defense of Prop 13. First of all, it is factually correct that at 1% our property tax is lower than a lot of other states. It is also factually correct that house prices in California are significantly higher than in most other states. So you can't isolate one variable, say 1%, and then without looking at the bigger picture. The other point that tends to get lost...
But how many other states have Prop 13?
Well, Massachusetts has a variation of it, and a lot of states have had, after the Prop 13 revolt in 1978, a lot of legislators who didn't want to face an initiative made some property tax changes, but of course, as a statute, they can make changes themselves. Prop 13, property taxes are about the middle. They're not we're not the bottom of property tax collection. We're about the middle of all of the states. I don't know if this is an opportunity for me, but there's another issue I think we haven't talked about that should be on the table, and that is those folks who lobby the legislature, who have great influence, particularly corporations on one side, but the public employee unions, which we haven't talked about. And the comptroller just issued a report, I think it was yesterday or may even be coming out this morning, on the fact that we have $48 billion in potential debt for health care and retirement costs for public employee unions. So the ability of certain interests to affect the laws in the legislature add to the burden that we're discussing here today.
Well, Governor,
I want to, I'm sorry, I want to interject just one thing since, to beat the dead horse of the income tax. I always go back to a line that was written by Herb Stein, who's nobody would mistake for a Democrat. He was an economist who was head of Nixon's Council of Economic Advisors. And he wrote, during a discussion of his era, and he's no longer with us, about what is the proper level of progressivity in an income tax system. He said he didn't know what the proper top marginal rate was in an income tax, but what he did know was that whatever it is, the people who pay that top marginal rate always think it's too high. Now, the point I'm making is that we can talk about Venus and Serena Williams, we can talk about Tiger Woods. We have an income tax in the state. There is no way we're going to keep people like that from declaring their home state to be a state that doesn't have an income tax, like Florida. We can't operate that way. We can't use these people as examples. The reason that companies come to California is not simply because they look at it and say, where are we going to pay the highest tax? They look at it and they say, number one, where's the biggest market? That's California. They say, where am I going to get the most educated workforce? It used to be California, and you know, to go back to an old issue here, UC, Cal State University, was the glory of the state. It still is, but it is really on the edge. That's the sort of things, those are the services, and those are the virtues that bring businesses to a state like California. They're not, a company leader, a CEO who makes a calculation based only on the marginal tax rate, the income tax, is not doing his company any favors, and he's not doing his company or shareholders
I want to
service.
go around because we're down to the last couple minutes, and I want to have each one of you tell me what you think the most important steps are to be taken that could solve this problem, the long-term problem that we're facing here in California. Briefly, Joel, we'll start with you.
Okay, 3 quick steps. Make the business climate more friendly. Get the spending cap in place. I think at least those 2 measures will be very important. And I would also think a restructuring of the tax system. Protecting Proposition 13 would be valuable as well.
Well, 1, you have to cap spending. 2, you have to look at the tax structure and recognize that it doesn't work. as effectively as it could.
But looking at the tax structure is not a solution. Tell me what needs to be changed.
You know, you have to find a way of spreading the burden. I haven't looked in great detail at what Governor Davis proposed, but we have a tax structure that is predicated on models that no longer exist. And you have to look at the regulatory burden in the state. The fact of the matter is you can't have employees without employers. And, you know, with all due respect, Michael, employers aren't coming to the state. They're fleeing the state. And there's a whole series of reasons. Taxes are one component part of it. Lack of infrastructure is another component part of it. Liability reform, lack of liability reform is another part of it. I think California is on the precipice. You know, when I was a kid, Detroit was one of the richest cities in America. It is not today because they made some very, very bad decisions. And what I do know is, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, a conservative or a liberal, if you are rational, you know that capital is amoral. It flows wherever it can get the greatest return on investment.
We got to move on. I'm sorry, Governor.
Yeah, well, some of the things have already been covered, but in a structural sense, we do need to have a spending cap to curb the impulses of both parties to overspend. We do need to have a rainy day fund to help even out the peaks and valleys. I believe we need to have an open primary, greater participation, more debate, and I think a more candid discussion with the voters about the challenges before California. I also think we need to reduce the vote to pass a budget to
the supermajority rule.
To about 55%. That's a supermajority, but an attainable majority.
Right.
I wouldn't change the vote to increase taxes. I think 2/3 should be left, but 4 out of 5 budgets don't increase taxes. Finally, and most importantly, look at what we do well. People in this state want to start their own business. They want to invent something new. I used to say America does 2 things well, innovation and finance. Now I say we do 1 thing well, innovation. And we do it best in California. And we do it through our university systems. That is the crown jewel of California, to keep research, innovation, new products, new medical discoveries. We need to become the leader, remain the leader, and provide American leadership and innovation.
Michael, I'm sorry to cut you short, but briefly, what's that?
Well, I agree. We need to eliminate the supermajority in the budget process. We need to eliminate ballot box budgeting, particularly at elections other than the general election. And we need to restructure the tax system with Proposition 13 not immune to it, but front and center, right on the middle of the table.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. It's a great discussion. Not sure that we fixed anything, but we've had some really good discussion and good ideas. And certainly thank all of you at home. We appreciate your watching. Thanks for being with us. From everyone here at LA City View, so long. Until next time.
We're all in this together.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
members of the Los Angeles community here this morning for a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council for June 5th, 2009. While it is a gray day outside, the city celebrates a 25-point victory by the Los Angeles Lakers yesterday. And we hope that that good luck continues and that good play continues as well. I want to thank the members of the public that are with us, as well as our viewers on Channel 35. Channel 35 broadcasts each council meeting live during each of our Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday meetings, and also rebroadcasts us in the evenings. We're also available on the internet through lacity.org for live streaming webcasts and past archived footage of former council meetings. And I want to thank those council members that are here pursuant to City Council rules on time. Council members Cardenas, Gruhl, Parks, Reyes, and Zine. We are going to be at a bare quorum today. Ms. Hahn is excused, Ms. Perry is excused, and Mr. Smith is excused, as well as Mr. Weiss. Mr. Weezar was expected but is not able to come in this morning, so we are going to be at a bare quorum, and we are going to depend on all members being here. That means we're waiting for Council Members Alarcon, Council Member Labange, Council Member Rosendahl, Councilmember Wesson to join us. In the meantime, each Friday we have special presentations for members from the community and notable days and occasions, heroes from our midst, as well as notables who are here. And this is no different. We have some very special presentations from council members. So while we're waiting quorum, we will begin those presentations. I want to begin first by recognizing the council member whose district the Van Nuys City Hall sits in, council member from the 6th District, Mr. Tony Cardenas.
Waiting for my Japanese garden entourage to come forward.
Mr. Cardenas, you seem to be the only person without a robe on. Would you?
No, they're not robes. They're happy coats.
Would you like a happy coat?
There's a difference. There's a difference. Some are red and some are blue. Don't feel bad. I didn't know that until recently either. But they certainly are happy people in their happy coats. Good morning. We take great pleasure in congratulating the Japanese Gardens on its 25th anniversary, which is June 13, 2009, which will kick off a year-long celebration at the Sepulveda Basin. The Japanese Garden has been ranked number 12 out of 300 public Japanese gardens in the Western Hemisphere, requiring dedication by many, including the Japanese Garden Citizens Advisory Board and over 78 garden docents and volunteers, like many of them who are here today. Japanese garden docents and volunteers donate their time to conduct tours of the garden, educate the public about wastewater reclamation and reuse, as well as support the cultural events at the garden, valuing an estimated $1.7 million per year. The Japanese Garden is open 6 days a week. It tries to accommodate rentals for weddings, photography, and other activities on Fridays and Saturdays, booking up to a year in advance. During the past 24 years, the Japanese Garden and the Tillman facility have also accommodated 647 filming activities for major motion pictures and student films, including the Tillman Administration Building as Star Trek Academy for the Next Generation series. In the late 1960s, when the Bureau of Engineering was looking at the San Fernando Valley expanding and the need for wastewater conveyance and treatment, Donald Tillman, a city engineer, decided to build an upstream treatment plant to remove the water and have it available for reuse at the Sepulveda Basin. The land was under the Army Corps of Engineers jurisdiction. Donald Tillman met with Recreation and Parks, who held most of the lease agreements for the Sepulveda Basin, and the Corps, to provide a buffer separation from Woodley Park and to create a concept for the project that would be high-end architecture suitable for public visitation, viewing, and education of the reclamation process. After taking a class at UCLA on Japanese garden design from Dr. Koichi Kawana, Donald Tillman decided that the buffer that Recreation and Parks wanted and the enticement to get the public to the facility to educate them on water reclamation could be accomplished by constructing a Japanese garden with a major lake in it that utilized the reclaimed water from the plant. Therefore, 8 acres of the project site was set aside for the development of the Japanese garden and the visitors' parking. Also, I'd like to add that the Japanese Garden was dedicated along with the Donald Tillman Water Reclamation Plan on June 14, 1984, at the conclusion of a 1.5-year project period. At this time, I'd like to request that the Los Angeles City Council join the Japanese Garden in celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Japanese Garden. And with that, I'd like to turn over the microphone to Arthur H. Hirschberg, Chair of the Mayor's Advisory Committee to the Japanese Garden.
Good morning, everybody. I really have very little to say. My friend Tony did it, but I do want to do some introductions for you. First of all, please come over close by here. This is Tracy Minamede, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the Department of Sanitation, under whose aegis we operate. So she's my boss. All right? Also, Hido, are you? There you go. Come on up. Hido Neto is the general manager of the Tillman Water Reclamation Plant. So this is another one of my bosses. I also would like to introduce Pamela Bodie. Pamela, these beautiful posters that you will find at each location, frame posters, were designed by Pamela, who is the Los Angeles City graphic artist. So they're quite spectacular. Thank you. Now, just for your information, the blue coats. I want to introduce also our staff.
Each council member is going to get one.
Yes, each council member will find one of these at his or her desk here. All right. I also would like to introduce briefly our staff who make the garden go. We tell them what to do, but they make it go. All right, Jean Green, who is our director of the Japanese Garden. All right. Patrick Rigney, right behind me, who is, who is our landscape architect. Julius Lunar, are you here? He does everything. He's our office technician who does lots of different things. And then the one who really makes it go is Betty Etheridge, who's our office manager. And you know what office managers are like. Now, just for your information, the blue coats, and there are 4 of us here, are members of the Mayor's Advisory Committee. The red coats are our fantastic docents who, as the council member told you, do tours plus educate over 6,000 of our young people every year as to the use of water, reclaimed water, and also as to the Japanese culture, which is very important with the garden. And we thank you all for honoring us. We appreciate it. We get a great deal of joy out of doing this work. I want you to know that. And again, thank you for recognizing us, but I have a feeling that some of you may not have been to our garden, and I hope you will think about it now. It is spectacular. The council member mentioned there's an organization which is called the Roth Journal of Japanese Gardens in the Western Hemisphere. And as he mentioned, we're ranked out of 300 recognized gardens in the Western Hemisphere. We are ranked number 12, which is quite spectacular. So you must all get out to see it. And those of you that have invited to our 25th anniversary celebration, we put another invitation on your desk so that you won't forget. We'll look forward to seeing you all there. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hirschberg. I'd like Mr. Hito to say a few words and explain how important this facility is.
Good morning, Councilman. Hito Neto, Treatment Plant Manager. The Donald C. Tillman Treatment Plant serves the San Fernando Valley, the North Valley. We take the wastewater from about 700,000 residents. It's about capacity of about 80 million gallons per day, and turn that into...
How many again?
80 million gallons per day capacity.
M or a B?
With an M. Water provides about 27 million gallons per day to the Los Angeles River, and we also serve quite a bit of water for recycle purposes, namely the San Fernando Parks, Balboa Park, and also the Department of Water and Power. We hope to get more water online in the future for our recycle needs. So again, we're looking for customers if anybody has any recycle needs out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's very important for us to understand that we are a society with a pretty high standard of living. And an engineer friend of mine once said, and I forget who said, maybe Mark Twain or somebody like that, basically said that water is for life, but sanitation is for dignity. So the San Fernando Valley boasts of having over 1 million people in it. But with that comes a heck of a lot of responsibility to deal with what comes out of every single one of those 700,000 households. So it's really important for us to understand and appreciate that not only are they doing a wonderful job as engineers by cleaning our waste, but also at the same time they provided us with one of the most beautiful gardens in the entire Western Hemisphere. I didn't say the entire Western United States, the Western Hemisphere. So it's something that we should be very proud of. And also, I would like to take responsibility on behalf of the City of Los Angeles by not allowing them, we have not allowed them to keep this garden up to the specs and standards that all of these wonderful people know that we can do. And that's because of the budgeting of the mayor and the city council of Los Angeles, not because of the people behind me. My point is, I really do believe that we would probably be the third ranked or the fourth ranked garden in all of the Western Hemisphere if we gave them the right resources, if we allowed them to hire the right gardening team, etc. And these are some of the complications that have happened over the last couple of years. And I just would like to thank all of you, for your dedication and your patience, even though the politics and the funding of the city have been a little messy at some times. So I just want to thank you so much for your patience. And I just want to say before the people of Los Angeles, if this one is ranked number 12, it could be ranked much, much better than that if we were to get our act together, not these people, but those of us politicians and the people running departments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cardenas. If we can call the roll, please.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Westenstein, Garcetti. 11 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay, if we can go through the first order of business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
All right, Ms. Gruel moves and Mr. Labange seconds. Without objection, those minutes will be approved. Next order of business.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Parks moves and Mr. Weston seconds. Without objection, those commendatory resolutions will be approved as well. If we can run through the agenda, please.
On the regular agenda, item 1, the budget was signed by the mayor on Tuesday. Therefore, there is no action required.
Okay. Next items, please.
Item 2 is an item notice for public hearing.
Okay.
And there is a card on that.
Call that special for card from the public. Next items.
Items 3 through 13 are items for which public hearings have been held. On item 11, there is a request to continue that matter to June 9th.
Is there any objection to continuing that till the 9th of June? If not, I'll call for special. And any other specials, colleagues? 10 for Cardenas. If there's no others, let's go ahead and open the roll on the balance, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved with the exception of 3, which will carry over to next week as a second reading of the ordinance. Next items, please.
Items 14 through 22 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration. And on item 21, there is a request to continue that to June 19th.
Okay. Any objection to continuing 21 till the 19th? If not, we will do that. Do we have cards from the public on any of these?
Yes, Mr. President. There's cards on 16, 19, and 22.
Okay, we'll call those special for cards from the public, and we'll open and close the other public hearings. If nobody wishes to call any other specials from these items, let's go ahead and prepare the roll on the balance and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. If we can call the roll for the special meeting, please.
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Westenstein, Garcetti. 11 members present and a quorum.
Okay. First items.
Items 23 and 24 are items for which public hearings have not been held.
Okay, we have a card on number 23, so we'll call that special for a card from the public. On item 24, there are no cards. We'll open and close the public hearing. Anybody wishing to call 24 special? If not, let's go ahead then and prepare the roll on 24 and tabulate the vote.
Select.
11 ayes.
Those are approved. If we can recess the special meeting, head back to the regular meeting. And item 4, Ms. Gould is going to recuse herself in abundance of caution on the item for the special election in Council District 2. And with that will take us to 10 members. If we can please prepare the roll on item 4 and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. We'll send that forthwith without objection.
Suspend the rules to send it super.
Okay. If there's no objection, let's go ahead and open the roll on suspending the rules to send that super forthwith. 1 second, Ms. Gruhl. Go ahead and open the roll. Close the roll and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
The rules are suspended in order to send that what's called super forthwith, so that it can actually leave us right now and before the end of the meeting. I'll go ahead and move to send this immediately to the mayor without objection. So ordered. Okay, we'll next come back to presentations, and I'd like to recognize the councilwoman from the 2nd District, Councilwoman Wendy Gruhl, for our next presentations.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Good morning. This is a special presentation I get to give to Morty Weishauer, who here in Van Nuys today. He has been a member of the B'nai B'rith International since 1946, moved to California in 1956. Should I say I wasn't born yet, Morty? Would that make you feel young? He owned his own clothing store, Jason's, which was located here in the San Fernando Valley from 1967 until 1992. He later retired and joined a local B'nai B'rith chapter, a nonprofit organization for which he currently organizes donations to schools, homeless shelters, and community-based organizations. He was instrumental in securing a grant from the Department of Housing and Urban Development and facilitated funding from the Community Redevelopment Agency to develop a 91-unit low-cost housing for senior citizens in 1995, and he became president of the San Fernando Valley chapter of B'nai B'rith in 1997. He is currently the senior vice president and member of the board of directors of the Golden Years Senior Apartments in Mr. LaBonge's district, providing this low-cost housing. He regularly organizes trips to and outings for seniors to museums, theaters, picnics, healthy food programs, and entertainment activities. He's also been a very big part of my success of my Child Health and Safety Fair by donating volunteers, food, and supplies. Morty is one of those individuals, I feel like he's part of my extended family. We go every year to celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas there at the Golden Years Senior Center with my husband and son, even before he was my husband, and we are always welcomed with open arms. But most importantly, Morty is someone who gets up in the morning, goes and gets donated food, bagels primarily, that we are usually the recipient of, to bring to events and volunteers, and is someone who can organize a crowd of sometimes rambunctious seniors and tells them what they need to do. And you hear them laughing because they know that's what you do. But he has the biggest heart and is an incredible asset to the city of Los Angeles. And I did not want an opportunity to go by to not organize and acknowledge Morty and, of course, his wonderful wife, Bonnie, who is here with him, and to have the entire city council and mayor and city attorney and controller sign this and say thank you for your years of dedication to serving this community. And not only my district and Tom LaBonge districts and Dennis Zines district, you name it. Morty has been around to help this city be a better place. And so it is really my distinct honor and pleasure to present this proclamation to Morty Weishauer, who is a jewel here in the city of Los Angeles. And if we can all give him a great round of applause for his service. I'm going to present it here. Take a picture before you
I want to thank everybody. I don't know how to follow this. Most of the things that
Councilman Wendy Gould just said is part of my acceptance. I'll do it anyway. I want to thank Councilmember Wendy Gould for presenting this prestigious award to me. This proclamation will be placed on exhibit in the showcase on the lobby of the Golden Year Senior Apartments, where all the residents, members of my B'nai B'rith can enjoy it. Tarzana B'nai B'rith original charter was in Tarzana, but now we are located in North Hollywood. I'm repeating a lot of things that Wendy just said. I have been president for the past 12 years, raised money through a grant from HUD to build Golden Year Senior Apartments, a beautiful 91-unit, low-cost housing facility for people who cannot afford to pay full rent, required to live in the well-built and well-maintaining units. CRA contributed monies to put in balconies. My B'nai B'rith Lodge also raised money to provide large recreation room, fully equipped kitchen for the residents, patio furniture, 2 barbecues, a 50-inch flat-screen television, a pool table, and gardens for the residents to maintain. This was considered a luxury by HUD. We consider this things for the better way of life for the residents. Through Golden Years, I have had the privilege of working with Wendy Gould and her staff in putting together her successful projects such as yearly health care safety fairs, neighborhood beautification, flu shot and health events, and other effects on behalf of Valley residents, all of which help our constituents. Working with Councilmember Wendy Gould and her staff have made it possible for our organizations to take senior citizens to theaters, museums, picnics, baseball games, concerts at the Hollywood Bowl, day trips to points of interest around the city. These seniors are very grateful to her for her interest in making a better and more interesting life for them. In addition, with her support, my B'nai B'rith Lodge collects and donates each month over $7,000 worth of merchandise, school supplies, cleaning supplies, clothing, intimate products, blankets, toys, games to schools, religious organizations, homeless and battered women's shelters, many of which are located in Wendy's Districts number 2, as well as locations all over the Valley. Wendy and I have been working together for over 5 years. She regularly supports and attends our events. Her and her husband attend our annual Hanukkah and Christmas party for the community and volunteers to light celebrity candles and participate in the ceremony.
And serve food with Mr. Zine there.
And help serve food, yes. Mr. Zine also, Councilman Zine also has been there and helped serve food, and so has other council members. We will miss Wendy Gould, but I know she will do a wonderful job as controller of the city of Los Angeles. We in Studio City will miss her smiling face and all the good work she has accomplished for us. For example, enjoying pothole-free streets. She is definitely queen of the potholes. Reduction in crime and beautification of our... I lost it. And the beautification of our city is greatly appreciated. I can say much more, but I am limited to how much time I can speak. So, I am honored to receive this proclamation, and it is my pleasure to continue to contribute to the community and to respond to the hundreds of individuals each month needing clothing, necessity supplies for life, and a day of survival, impacting the lives I screwed up. Let me go back. And to respond to hundreds of individuals in need of clothing and necessities and necessary supplies for their day-to-day survival. Impacting lives, impacting the community is my goal. And thank you.
Thank you and congratulations, sir.
Thank you. So we want to take a quick picture. Bonnie, come here. Take a picture.
And Ms. Gould will stay there, I believe, for the next presentation as well. Okay.
I get to make another wonderful presentation. Colleagues to Bill and Mary Jane Miller. They'd come up and their family. I'm so happy today to be able to present Bill and Mary Jane Miller, who are celebrating, can you believe this, 65 years of marriage. 65 years. Bill and Mary Jane have been active members of our community for many years and have made extraordinary and terrific contributions to their neighborhood. Bill moved to Los Angeles from Nebraska in 1941 to pursue a career in aerospace industry at Lockheed, and Mary Jane moved that same year from Montana here to Los Angeles. They met at a swing shift dance in Burbank and were married in 1944. Bill spent a few years in the military and was stationed in Kansas and Colorado. Afterwards, the couple moved back to the Los Angeles area. And in 1951, they moved back to their residence in Van Nuys, where they still reside. They raised 3 sons, who you can see standing with us today, who all became involved in public service. One with Pacific Gas and Electric, one, of course, our own Captain Miller here from the Los Angeles Police Department, and Scott Miller, a captain with the Fire Department, who was one of our heroes in the time and was shot during that time during the civil disturbance, as I recall, and we all watched and hoped that he would survive that and is standing here today as I think a dedication and a true hero here in Los Angeles. Bill worked for 30 years at Hillcrest Motors, specializing in air conditioning, and Mary Jane worked for Film Communications in North Hollywood, specializing in providing fire suppression education to the public. They have contributed to the community by participating in neighborhood watch programs. They have an extraordinary, wonderful San Fernando Valley story about living here, raising their children here, and their grandchildren here. I think 3 of the Millers in your live in my district. Is that correct? 3? More than 3. Your parents?
My daughter and my son-in-law.
And son-in-law, okay. 3, but all are extraordinary individuals who have contributed to really what I think is the fabric of Los Angeles and the San Fernando Valley. And, 65 years of marriage, wow, that's amazing. And you don't look any older than just 65. You must have been a child bride in that. But it is my pleasure to recognize them for their 65 years of marriage and their wonderful family who are here to support them today. Let's give them a great round of applause. Come on, tell us what the magic secret is for 65 years of marriage.
It's simple.
Great, come on up, step up to the mic.
It's simple. When she says jump, you say, yes, dear, how high?
Well, I can't say because I haven't figured out. I've been working on it for 65 years, and I'm not sure. Call me back in 10 years, and maybe I'll have the answer for you.
Thank you. And as you see, we also both captains have sons that are in the police department and the fire department. So this is a family that gives back to the city of Los Angeles. Thank you, Mr. President, for this presentation, allowing me to congratulate you on your 65 years of marriage and an extraordinary family. Thank you. You want us to go this way or this way? Right here? Okay.
Ms. Gruhl, are you going to do your 3rd one as well? Okay. Okay. All right. We'll recognize next from the 7th Council District, Councilmember Richard Alarcon.
One more. Last one. 1, 2, 3.
Forthwith, please. Without objection, we'll send number 9 forthwith. Mr. Alacon.
Council members, today I'm recognizing San Fernando High School on 2 counts. San Fernando High, I believe it is the oldest high school in the San Fernando Valley, along with Canoga Park and Van Nuys. And it continues to provide successful stories. We have a very special young woman here who is somebody you don't want to mess with, because she is the Female Wrestler of the Year and was designated such not by LA Unified, but by the Daily News. And we know that they never miss it. So we are very proud of Sarah Saenz for her tremendous accomplishment, and her coach, Coach Gonzalez, for bringing her to this point. So let me tell you a little bit about what she has done. Sarah is joined here by her mother and her brother, Donna and Hector, and her coach, Fernando Gonzalez. She is finishing up her junior year in San Fernando High, where she has made a name for herself through a sport that we don't often equate with women athletes, and that's, of course, wrestling. In April, the Daily News, as I said, designated her as the Female Wrestler of the Year, and for good reason. Sarah has been a member of the San Fernando High School wrestling team for all 3 years she's been at the school, contributing towards 3 city championship teams. She has wrestled at both the JV and varsity level. There's a phone over there. And that's a championship, obviously, every year that she has been wrestling at the school. During her matches, she has defeated 70% of her opponents, who are mostly boys. In April, Sarah won on the 132-pound girls Southern Section tournament with a pin in 44 seconds. Wow, that's shorter than any presentation I've seen at this council. She's also won the Thousand Oaks tournament at 138 pounds. She's also won 2 state championships in freestyle wrestling for her age group level on the USA Wrestling California State Championships. Sarah finished the season with a record of 18-5, a mark that includes matches against girls and boys. Sarah's interest in wrestling was first sparked by her father at the age of 6 when she began wrestling at the Boys and Girls Club. Also, after seeing her older brother, Raymond Saenz, wrestle, she decided to follow in his footsteps. He's currently a senior and wrestles for San Fernando High as well. And Sarah told the San Fernando High School newspaper that wrestling has not only taught her endurance and discipline, it's brought forth many qualities useful in life, such as confidence and dedication. Beside her regular practice with the team, Sarah also trains with another trainer, Coach Chad, and frequently works out with her brother. In the future, she is already being followed by coaches and scouts from colleges, but she's keeping her options open. Sarah is considering becoming an elementary school teacher and would like to attend Cal State Northridge. Go Matadors. That's actually in my notes. Go Matadors. Like they have to tell me I graduated from Northridge. Or UCLA. Either school, I'm sure, will provide her with a tremendous experience to explore both her athletic talents and her educational desires. So obviously she's shown her dedication and strength, and a very talented young woman. Success in any athletic field, no matter whether it's a traditional role or not, requires all the same things that success in the academic world requires, and I'm sure that she will have equal accomplishment. So if you, this is her in the San Fernando newspaper, where I'm sure she has a bunch of fans cheering her on. But basically, I want to present this recognition from the City Council to Sarah Saenz, Female Wrestler of the Year, for her tremendous accomplishments, and knowing that next year she's going to do, if not better, at least the same. We wish her continued success, and we'll bring her back and get another certificate, okay? But congratulations, Sarah.
Thank you.
You're a champ.
Thank you for honoring me today.
Excellent. That's the best speech, I guarantee you, that the council will have. You know, we can't recognize the athlete without recognizing the coach. Fernando Gonzalez has dedicated his life to helping young people understand how to use their physical talents, but really because he's an educator. And we want to present this to Coach Fernando Gonzalez for creating another champion. I'm sure he'll have many more as time goes on. Thank you. Would you like to take this?
On behalf of San Fernando High School, our principal, Ken Lee, our athletics staff, and of course the San Fernando wrestling team, we want to thank the council for recognizing both Sarah and the high school, and with my name representing the high school. So thank you very much.
Does Councilman Cardenas, who is Tiger himself, would you like to make a comment?
Yes, thank you very much. It's wonderful to see the diversity of the wrestling team, a little bit more than people used to see in the past. Actually, at San Fernando High School, a couple of my brothers wrestled as well, but believe me, they would have never admitted if they ever got beat by a girl. So I feel bad for those guys who had to compete with you when you beat 7 out of 10 of them. But I know for a fact, having to deal with my older brothers coming home and trying on their moves on me and stuff like that, how difficult that is. And I remember they used to, I don't know if this is okay these days, but they used to go a couple of days with eating just a little can of tuna or something like that because they had to make weight, things of that nature. So it's a very incredible sport. It teaches a lot of discipline and teaches you how to be really serious about something. So congratulations to you. Obviously, you're very serious about it, and it's very unique. And I just want to thank you on behalf of all people, and especially women, on sticking to it, because I'm sure it wasn't fun, and I'm sure some knucklehead guys made some dumb comments to you along the way or what have you, and rather than being intimidated by it, I'm sure it just inspired you to go wrestle even better and do some damage out there. So congratulations, and it's well deserved, and to keep on the good work. And there's a lot of things, young lady, that you're going to be able to tackle and overcome because you did something so unique and so special. Thank you.
Tony, Sarah said not one of the guys that she had in a stranglehold said anything negative about her.
Not to her face.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize Mr. Alacon for a second presentation as well.
As I said, it's San Fernando High Day. We're gonna recognize the academic side at this time with a presentation to a group of students who did something very unique, and it's very interesting. Apparently, obviously, I recognize the athletic talent of San Fernando. And by the way, I should mention, San Fernando has incredible athletic talent with the likes of Anthony Davis and so many others who have succeeded. But also, on the academic side, we have the likes of Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who was the only Congress member who stood up against the war in Iraq at the first opportunity. So I'm very proud that although she represents Oakland, that she emerged out of San Fernando High School. And these young people have done something that is very interesting. It's almost curious in a way, but it definitely demonstrates their academic talent. And what I'm talking about is the Quick Science Challenge team. I don't know what Quick Science is, but hopefully by the end of this presentation I'll have a better idea. They recently placed second in the Southern California region for their efforts. The group is comprised of 6 seniors from San Fernando High and their advisor, Ms. Catherine Connolly. So you have to ask yourself, what is the Quick Science Challenge? The Quick Science Challenge was created through a partnership between USC's Wrigley Institute for Environmental Studies and the company Quicksilver Incorporated. It aims to improve science education through students' love of the ocean. The competition was open to all schools in Southern California. So what did San Fernando High do? The team worked on projects for 4 months, competing against teams from across Southern California. California. As part of their challenge, they created lessons and did community service, created programs to reduce litter, and even did a research proposal. They wrote a research proposal, and I will challenge any of my colleagues to guess what this is about, but the proposal was human impact on cetacean densities and the effect of their local ecosystem. So that clarifies it all for all of us. I have no idea what that means, but one of them is going to explain it to us, so get ready. Designed a fourth grade lesson plan on how plastics affect the marine environment, which they taught a lesson at O'Melveny Elementary School, and they created a solution to an environmental problem by reducing litter on the San Fernando High School campus. They also did the following community service projects: the Zoomobile assembly for all 10th grade students, Whittier Narrows Nature Center assembly for all 10th grade students, recycling assembly for all 10th grade students. They were very kind to the 10th grade students, obviously. The family science night at Shakey's Pizza. I'm sure that was interesting. They made environmentally friendly cleaners. That's another one we need explanation for. And sold 200 reusable bags to replace plastic bags, some of the things that we're even considering before council. They also encourage classroom recycling and beach cleanup. So these young people have been extremely busy protecting our world, and I know that they are going to continue to do that because environmentalism is not an activity, it's a lifelong mission. What did they win? They won second place, and they received a weekend trip to Catalina Island and the Wrigley Institute there, which happened just a few weeks ago. These Quick Science team members are wonderful examples of what is right in our schools and youth today. They took on projects that will directly affect the environment, teaching others and giving back to the community. Just like earlier honoree Sarah Sines is a role model through her wrestling, these 6 seniors are wonderful role models to their fellow classmates, showing that they can take what they've learned and have a direct, powerful impact on their surrounding community. So with that, I'd like to present these certificates to the students and ask Advisor Catherine Conley. Maybe she can explain some of this to us. Okay, Catherine, you're first.
Hi, we'd like to thank everybody for their support. These students have shown a lot of dedication and a lot of hard work through the first semester and the second semester of this school year. They did a lot of research, they did a lot of community service, and I'm very, very proud of them. And Ms. Bauer is also the Science Club advisor, and the parents supported us, and we truly appreciate everything that everyone has done to help us along this journey. Thank you.
And now for that explanation, we have one of the students, Melissa Serrano.
First, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Alcon and Mr. Estrada for your support. We would like to thank our families for all the help. We love helping our community learn about environmental issues and teaching younger students about recycling and the ocean. I could agree that one of our favorite parts about this activity has been going to Catalina Island and learning more about the marine ecosystem. Yeah.
If I can't say cetacean right, you don't have to say Alarcon right either. Don't worry about it. So it's my pleasure to present these certificates in no particular order. Paulo Rodriguez. Blanca Villa.
Over here.
Christian Chavero? Okay.
Thank you.
Luz Espinosa. Melissa Serrano. Yesenia Garcia. And of course, the teacher, advisor, and we don't have one, I'm sorry for you, but check is in the mail. Catherine Connolly. We want to say congratulations to San Fernando High. I want to say that when I look at the academic performance of the high schools in my district, they are challenged. There's no question. It's the Northeast San Fernando Valley. It's difficult. We have working families, working teenagers, and their academic performance isn't necessarily what we would like to see it be. So there's a lot of work to be done, but these young people and our star athlete represent the true talent. If we had all the resources that we could put into education, I believe that all of the students could be doing equally as well. So I want to congratulate these students, notwithstanding the challenges that they face, just like all the other students. They excelled. So congratulations and go Tigers.
Thank you very much. Our last presentation will be from Councilmember Dennis Zine of the 3rd Council District. Dennis Philip Zine.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to be joined by 2 fine members of the Los Angeles City Fire Department, firefighter paramedic Michael Finger and Nathan Combs. If you gentlemen will please come forward. Mike and Nathan. It was a quiet day in the city of Los Angeles. You were working the day watch out of 88 when a call came out, crash, hit and run, rescue at Sepulveda and Ventura Boulevard. You responded to the scene, multiple vehicle collision, and the man was there, Michael Grovestein. Come on up, Michael. Michael was the victim of a nasty hit-and-run felony traffic collision. The firefighter paramedics arrived, respond from Station 88. Michael's been with the fire department 7.5 years. Michael, which one? Michael, 7.5 years. And Nathan, 2.5 years. Yes, sir. You still a rookie? Yes, sir. All right. The guys back there, all right?
Not to a first year.
A bunch of rookies back there, too. Okay. The 2 gentlemen went above and beyond the call of duty to assist Mike Grovestein during the hit-and-run collision. Mike Grovestein, who I've known for many years, a wonderful, good friend of mine and many people of the community, was involved in a hit-and-run accident involving 6 vehicles on the night of January 26th at Balboa and Ventura Boulevard. 6 vehicles involved in the collision, plus the car that caused the accident. The hit-and-run driver was traveling between 60 and 100 miles per hour and was seen fleeing the scene, abandoning his passenger and his vehicle. Mr. Grovestein was severely injured with leg and wrist injuries. The firefighter paramedics arrived to aid Mr. Grovestein and tried to give him morphine intravenously and couldn't get a vein. Ultimately, they gave him intramuscular injection, which reduced the pain. These 2 gentlemen from the LA City Fire Department then held his lower arm in the right position for 3 hours, first at the accident site and then the emergency room at Encino Hospital. Mr. Grovestein commented he did not know what things these gentlemen had done in the past, but for him, did not know how he could have survived the accident without their aid and assistance. And we'd like to recognize these 2 firefighter paramedics who do this rescue on a daily basis, and seldom do the public come forward and recognize in a public arena. But when I heard about the situation and visited Michael when he was with all kinds of apparatus on his body, trying to get him mended back to health, he related the story to me, and I said, we need to bring these folks down, and he wanted to emphasize, to publicly acknowledge them for their wonderful activities and helping him and spending that much time with him. And as you can see, you're back to normal. Almost back to normal. Well, you look good, Mike. Thank you. So, in recognition of outstanding citizenship and activities enhancing community betterment, we award this certificate of appreciation for exemplary efforts and accomplishments which have been of great value to the community, the city of Los Angeles, and which have helped to further the common goal of making our city a better place in which to live to you two gentlemen, representatives of the LA City Fire Department. I know we've got other firefighter paramedics. Are they with your station?
Yes.
Why don't you guys come up and join? You got your captain and some of your colleagues here from the station who were there helping the people of the city of Los Angeles on a daily basis in this particular situation, helping Michael Grovestein. And it's seldom that you see the victim afterwards. You see them at the time of the tragedy, you see them at the hospital, and then you go about your duties and you don't know what ultimately happens with the victim. In this particular case, obviously, Mr. Mike Grovestein, my good friend, is standing and doing well. So congratulations to both of you, and I know, Michael, you want a couple of words to say on behalf of the community. Michael.
You know, we don't often enough recognize our first responders. We sort of take it for granted that they're going to be there for us. And they are. And so I just believe that we need to recognize first responders, all of law enforcement. But these folks, we expect them, when we have a fire, to be there to put it out. When we need a paramedic, we expect them to come to our house. We call 911. Or wherever. And we think it's just the drill. And these two young men, I'm showing my age, didn't have to relieve the pain that I was having. It was excruciating pain because my elbow, my lower arm was sticking out of my elbow, and it was a god-awful thing. And these guys didn't have to hold my arm up. They could have left me, gone back to 88, but they didn't. And all I can tell you is it isn't often that human beings extend themselves for another human being when there's nothing in it for them. They just do it because they have a conscience and they're considerate and they're compassionate. So I want to thank you personally. I've done it before, but I'd like to do it in public. You guys are great. Your peers are great, the people you work with, and we don't spend enough time telling them what a great job they do. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Zine, Ms. Gruhl would like to add her good wishes as well. Ms. Gruhl?
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Zine, for recognizing these wonderful firefighters. I happened to see Mr. Grovestein and talk to him days after this incident as he was recovering, and he spoke very highly of your response and the city's response and his willingness. He was a great taxpayer because he knew it was going for good services in our fire department, but I think he's right that we don't thank our firefighters and first responders enough for what they do. And I know that Mr. Grovestein appreciated it tremendously and felt he was alive and well and able to function because of that quick response. And so, Mr. Zine, I want to thank you for bringing them here today, and for you, Mr. Grovestein, being here out of your schedule to say thank you to them as well. Oftentimes, the victims don't have any relationship necessarily to the people who have helped them, never see them again. You never know necessarily what happens to them, and it's nice, I think, even for you to have closure as to someone who appreciated what you do, and all of us on the City Council do as well. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Zine, and of course, thank you, Mr. Grovestein. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Wendy. I'd like to add, Mr. President, that Mike Grovestein is a former commissioner with the South Valley Planning Commission, also transportation. So he knows the hard work that the city employees do every single day, and this was obviously a very special situation in his life, and he was very concerned that we give proper acknowledgement to the firefighter paramedics that came to really bring him back to good health as he is today. So on behalf of the council, we acknowledge the firefighters and the paramedics and the police officers, and this council is working. I know you heard a lot of rumors about the budget, but this council is working diligently to make sure that you folks are compensated and that we continue providing the service to the people of Los Angeles who depend on it every single day. They don't know when they're going to be the victim of a traffic collision or the victim of a fire, the victim of a crime, and this council is very committed to public safety. So I want you to take that back to the station, that we're fighting to make sure that you folks don't get furloughs. We can't furlough you folks. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zine. If we can now return, I think Ms. Gruhl has a final presentation, but she's going to wait on that one. So that'll take us to our general public comment right now. That is for items that are not on our agenda, but nevertheless under our jurisdiction. And Frank Sheftel will be our first speaker, but hold on one second just while we take a photo with our great paramedics there. In the meantime, we do have the special meeting which will follow this. That's one item, number 23, which we'll take up after we go through public comment for our regular meeting. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items that are called special in our regular meeting as well. So why don't we actually go out to downtown for our first speaker. Arnold Sachs is our first speaker there, and then we'll come back to Mr. Sheftel here in Van Nuys. Good morning, Mr. Sachs.
Zoning change. As per Councilman Reyes mentioned that the zoning had been changed to unlimited height for that area. Find out when a zoning change had been made, and you'll find out when your fate was sealed. They always tend to have a plan. That's why we ask people to pay attention to the REAP and the track map steps that are taken. City Council doesn't work like month to month. They're looking out on a plan for a 5-year plan. As a matter of fact, one of the items on today's agenda regards a 5-year plan, item number 2. So when you don't pay attention to these little track map ideas that come forward and these little REAP programs that they initiate to get people out of their buildings, it's just a small step for their future. They have a plan. They have a 10-year plan. They have a 15-year plan. The public doesn't play into that plan. They had the marionettes here. The marionettes that pull they're the marionettes also. They have people that pull their strings. That's where the 5 and 15-year plan comes into account. Look at what happened when they talked about the signage for USC. They did the same thing at LA Live. The first thing they did, 1999, before the buildings were even developed, they went out and bought the rights for signage. 10 years later, they're coming to fruition. That's what happens with these projects. That's what happens with your faith in the city council. Don't look behind, except when you want to find out when the changes were made. Look to the future for like 10 years down the highway.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Frank Sheftel. For anybody interested in their community plans, the planning.lacity.org website has the community meetings that are happening around all the community plans in the city. So come out to some of the workshops and help participate in writing those. Frank Sheftel is our next speaker. After that is Chuck Tenen.
Thank you. I'm Frank Sheftel. I'm running for CD2 for Wendy's seat. I'm very excited that you guys passed that today, so the election will be September 22nd. Looking forward to that. One of the reasons I'm here today is because I'm really concerned of what's happening this summer. It's really urgent with the schools being closed. The LAUSD is closing the schools except for the high school students that need to get their credits for graduation. And that's going to leave over 225,000 families without any summer places for their children to go. And I'm very concerned about that. I know that the City Council doesn't have control over LAUSD, but this is our community, and their decision has now an impact on our communities. We're going to have our children all over the city without anywhere to go. And I'd like to see the City Council enact something, maybe dip into your discretionary funds or look into some other ways that we can augment some of these services for our children. The parents now have to deal with childcare and things that they weren't supposed to have to deal with. And I think that the City Council has to look at the impact on the community. There are going to be kids riding around on bicycles, and we know how many accidents have happened in the last couple of weeks with bicycles. So I think that this is a really important thing that the city needs to look at, and I hope that we can do something as a community to, help our children and help the families that are going to be impacted by this. And I urge the City Council council to look at your funds and see if you can help in some of the after-school programs that are off-campus, some of the park and recreations. I know budgets are being cut there as well, so they're not going to be able to go to parks. I know the pools are going to be open, which is good, but we need to do something to make sure that the families feel comfortable that their children are safe over the summer while the schools are being closed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Labange, we actually have some news on that front. Mr. Labange, if you want to respond.
Our Arts and Parks Committee, your Arts and Parks Committee will be having a special meeting on that. We tried to meet last Wednesday, but our executive session took us into that time to discuss it. Your deputies will be invited to look at that and also get an early view of what are the challenges Reckitt Parks has on their own. So we'll make sure the public is notified. Thank you for your comment.
We do have a motion on that that Mr. Labange introduced that I seconded as well to ask the district to keep that open. And many of us are raising money privately, and we'll be trying to keep some of the schools open. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Chuck Tenen is our next speaker here. Then we'll go back to City Hall for Dr. Clyde Williams as our next speaker. Good morning.
Good morning, President Garcetti and council members. The City of Los Angeles has a budget crisis. We all know that, with proposed cutbacks on services and city programs at a time of economic recession, which is loss of jobs and housing and revenues. We need to know what's going on at our state level, our government that directly affects our city and its people in all cities in California. What started out as a simple initiative 10 years ago, a water quality initiative, 10 years later turned into closing down 1,100 miles of California coastline, marine resources, and fishing. A $250,000 budget to enforce, and now a $60 million budget, and who's going to pay for it? Governor Arnold and the California Resources Agency and their Blue Ribbon Task Force and their stakeholders in that, some people are paid and others are pushing it through on speculation. The City of Los Angeles has a crisis. Well, you know what? These massive closures are going to be off limits to everyone. And guess what? Guess what's going to happen? Our state government is using science with politics to implement laws and use private funding to support them. There were hundreds of people from the City of Los Angeles yesterday at an MLPA meeting that were angry and are trying to put a stop to it. Now we learn that the state is going to be supported by private funding when this is implemented. And our state government, guess what, wants to take money from the City of Los Angeles and our taxpayers to support this. $60 million a year on something that's senseless when people are losing their homes and their jobs, and this state is in bad shape on that, and they're going to use city money, taxpayer money, and private money to push this through and enforce it and close down our recreational resources. Wow.
Thank you. We'll now go downtown to Dr. Clyde Williams, followed by Peter Firestone.
Hello, my name is Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road, El Sereno, Northeast LA. Soon, Autry National Center will push to get their lease agreement revised, get their EIR certified for a new expansion in Griffith Park, and get the permits for that expansion. However, for over 20 years, they have not complied with any of the terms and conditions of their lease agreement. They have prepared an incomplete and inadequate, flawed EIR, and they have not provided the previous original buildings plans and specs as required by their lease agreement, nor any of the past modifications which have gone perhaps without permits. We would recommend that the city attorney take these conditions under advisement and review the entire project from start to finish and hold it in abeyance until that time. Do not approve the Autry's requirements for next week, perhaps on Tuesday at 9 a.m. The board, just to give you a little bit of history, the Board of Southwest Museum had their program of benign neglect. They kept that going for about 5 years. This led to the merger agreement with the Autry, which then took all of the Southwest Museum's funds and brought them to Griffith Park. And also, some of the board members from Southwest Museum were put on the Autry Museum board. So as a result, you have a conflict of interest on the parts of the previous and past Autry National Center and the merger Southwest Museum Board. We need pride in Northeast LA, not peace marches.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. Peter Firestone, downtown. Peter Firestone? Okay. He's not present. Okay, we'll come back here to Van Nuys City Hall. Joanne? Yamnek Garb, then we'll follow Phil Jennerjohn, followed by Candido Morez. Good morning.
Good morning, council members. Wendy, we are very sorry to see you go from this arena, but we are very happy and willing to work with you in your new position as city controller. Yay! West Hills Neighborhood Council, which I'm a member of, wants to help and be part of the greening efforts, and we are pleased to present each one of you with the West Hills Neighborhood bags. Okay? We are distributing these bags at various events, and on the Dad's Day Dash in Warner Center Park on June 13th, we're going to be distributing these bags in two different colors. One color will be, we're asking people to fill it with goods, canned goods and dry goods for the homeless and for the food pantries. So one color will go to the food pantry, one color will go to the homeless shelters. We are also going to be distributing these bags at all of our events as part of our public outreach. Beginning July 2nd and continuing for 7 Thursdays, we are going to be holding CERT training sessions from 7 to 9:30 at the Valley Christian Church, and then culminating in October with our Fall Fest, we're going to have CPR training and have the American Heart Association be there to certify people in CPR training. So that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Phil Jennerjohn, followed by Candido Morez, followed by Rick Nightingale. Mr. Jennerjohn.
Okay. All right. So, good morning, council members. My name is Phil Jennerjohn. It's a pleasure for me to be addressing you for the first time ever in my visit to Van Nuys City Hall. I'm here today to continue the discussion I started on Wednesday at City Council, the potential recall of Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. Since my statements on Wednesday, I've been contacted by a lot of different people about this. I don't want to appear to be a poor sport. I did run against the mayor in the March election. I did lose. However, because only 17% of the registered voters actually voted, 83% of the voters did not make their voices heard. They were disenfranchised and dispirited by the actions of this mayor, who refused to even meet his opponents or appear at a single event with them. The mayor was aided and abetted by a compliant and servile local media, who continually told voters the mayor could not be beaten. They refused to even print the names of his opponents in the election. This one-side reporting depressed voter turnout to microscopic levels. Now, I'm a fair man, and I accept my defeat in the election, but what did I learn? I learned that the 11% mayor found out that 9% of the voters of the city wanted him back, and 8% did not. I'm announcing today my intentions to launch recall action against the 9% mayor. I have reserved the internet domain names recallantoniovillaraigosa.com and recallantonio.com. I contacted the city clerk and found out I have a huge uphill battle ahead of me. I have to wait until 3 months until after the 9% mayor is sworn in for a second term. I have to publicly announce my intentions and have the 9% mayor given legal notice. Then I have to go and collect 240,000 signatures. That's a daunting task, but I'm not afraid. I'll spend the next 4 months recruiting an army of volunteers. I need 2,400 people to go out and get 100 signatures each from their neighbors. If voters of Los Angeles are interested in joining me, contact me at my mayoral website, philjennerjohn.com. You can also find me at the internet blogs, the very popular Mayor Sam, and my own blog, The Jennerjohn Report. Now, right now I'm only one man with $25 worth of internet domain names, but like I told this council before, it only takes one man to change the world. It just has to be the right man. I'm not afraid to fail in this attempt, because if I fail, the mayor and his city and his rubber-stamping city council will go on to wreak a swath of financial destruction on this city.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jennerjohn. Candido, followed by Rick Nightingale, followed by Donna Pearman.
Good morning, Madam President, council members. Thank you very much for coming to the heart of the San Fernando Valley, Van Nuys. We thank you for coming here. I just want to say that a great man from Van Nuys, Dr. Dan Wiseman, is ill, has had surgery, and we hope that you'll wave and say hello to him. Good morning, Mr. Wiseman. I know you're watching this. Also, I hope you're enjoying the rain here in Van Nuys. It's very rare that we get rain in June in California and in Los Angeles, but that just shows you that there's a greater power in the city of Los Angeles than DWP. Isn't that right, Mr. LaBonge? Just kidding. But it's just nice to be having rain in the San Fernando Valley in June. On June 17th, I hope that you'll join Mr. Zine, who's working with Walmart. As you know, Walmart is one of the few retailers that is hiring, and Mr. Zine, you're doing a great job working with the Walmarts. One day maybe you'll be mayor of this great city. But it's going to be a pleasure working with you and the West Hills Neighborhood Council. So on June 17th, if you're available, 7:30, we'll be celebrating the reopening of the Walmart. For those of you who are in the area, if you're looking for a great place to eat here on Van Nuys Boulevard, the rain's made Van Nuys Boulevard look fantastic. One day we hope to have a bid on Van Nuys Boulevard, and hopefully one day we'll have the boulevard looking like that all the time. So there's a great restaurant, the Hollywood Grill, just around the corner here, just to the right, if you'd like to go there. And then when we do open up the Tres Hermanos, hopefully in the future, we'll have another great restaurant along with La Fun. So again, thank you for being here, and we appreciate you taking the time in Van Nuys.
Thank you, Candido. Rick Nightingale, followed by Donna Pearman, followed by Miriam Fogler.
Yeah, Rick Nightingale. A while back, they kind of put me like a racist and so forth because some things that I speak about. Well, obviously I said I wasn't and so forth because I do speak about the people of Los Angeles. This is what it's all about. We're here, everybody's here, and we got to get along. But the thing is, obviously, I'm 65, I'm an elderly person, so why do all my friends have to move away? Like, I've lost 10 best friends in the last 5 years because they can't afford to live here. They lived here all their lives. Sure, their house is paid for, but they can't pay for the rest of it. Taxes, insurance, gas, and so forth. But then other people turn around on the council and so forth, keep pressing for low housing and everything else, that these other people live there all their lives, but they can't afford it because they're too proud to go to the city and want a bailout and so forth. So they move away to Arizona and Nevada and so forth, but then everybody else thinks that the city should pay them and give them money so they can live and subsidize their housing. I don't understand this. It's just not fair. And I just don't know the why, and it's just beyond me because I guess I had to support myself from the day I got out of high school. I never got another dime from my parents. I didn't expect it. But the rest of the people, they have their hand out. Why? Because that's the way it's been for so many years, the welfare and so forth, and now the governor can't do it anymore, so the city hasn't got the point that they can't keep doing it because there's no more money. I mentioned about that housing deal that Mr. Carlos and Cardia that turned around and said that they were going to give $75,000, and I said it was a multi-million-dollar deal. But then they say, well, they're on the news saying you can get $75,000. That's only 13 homes. Where's all this other money coming from when they can say these other people can do it? I'd like them to tell me how much money is in that kitty that they can loan out. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna Pearman?
Okay, hello. Welcome to the Dog and Pony Show. Guess what? City boys are going on furlough right now. It's not right when the city council squanders our money, making a circus out of the city, hurting the people receiving city services, giving tax increment money to the CRA. They have money set aside for pet projects, and you make the city employees give up 1 hour a day, 4 hours. But thank you, Mr. Garcetti. He's such a sweet man, saying the city council is working on it. So that's nice to know. Anyway, because right now you're making their raise null and void. It confuses the retirement issue. And the city council are asking concessions, except for Councilman Parks, for the fire and police. Not that I'm not against the fire and police, but I just like the same for the other city employees. And the Department of Water and Power is also not giving up, but they get 20% already higher than sanitation, even without the furlough. Anyway, let's see. I read about where the fire and police get $100,000 for overtime, was top their salary. You need to, they always look at overtime first. How much of that overtime is on fee waivers? Why don't you sacrifice fee waivers? Would we be in this problem if we didn't give our tax increment money to the CRA? Our city would be, no matter how much we give, our city would still be in crisis. As long as they mismanage our money, we will have problems. No cutbacks on their pet projects, I see. I will have city employees take care, city employees, I'm running out of time. They can't take care of all the city problems, homelessness, living wage, you have it. No more concessions. Let's take back our hour. Thank you.
Miriam Fogler?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Eric Garcetti. I want to tell you guys out there, ladies and gentlemen, that Garcetti's we're going to work on with the unions now to work on the early retirement plan. We're trying to get it through, and hopefully we're going to be able to do this. You guys got to come on board to save the money for the city here. And what else can I say? I'm so overwhelmed and I'm so gratified that they're coming up with this plan, the early retirement finally. So I want to let you know that I'm looking forward to that, and that I'm just hoping that the city will make a turnaround and that things will get better. I'm praying to God very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fogler. We're going to go back downtown. Mr. Firestone, I believe, came back into the room after we called his name. Is Peter Firestone there?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. On Tuesday, June 9th, you have on the agenda 090725 to amend the rent stabilization ordinance regarding eviction for owner, family, move-in. It creates a class of protected tenants. A landlord may not recover possession of a rental unit if, A, any tenant in the unit has continuously resided in the unit for at least 10 years and is either 62 years old or disabled. This sounds great, except for the lives and dreams that will be devastated. I'm thinking about the young couple in Pacoima with one child and one on the way. They've combined their life savings and borrowed from family for the down payment on a little duplex that closes escrow Tuesday. They plan to use the owner move-in provision of the RSO to pay relocation benefits to an existing tenant and finally have a little home for their family and move out of the in-laws' garage. But they will find out that both of the tenants in the duplex are protected and cannot be moved out. They will remain in the garage, and that same day, the value of the property which they just purchased will go down by 25 to 30%. So you go ahead and destroy their lives, that's okay. That is your prerogative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Firestone. That does close public comment. First item, Mr. City Clerk. Mr. Garcetti, did you want to go to item 23 first, or we'll just go in normal order? Special? All right, well...
So council wishes to recess the regular and go into the special meeting?
Yes, we'll go to item number 23. We do have one public comment card on that first, and then we'll go Mr. Arnold Sachs in downtown. Mr. Sachs.
Well. The Expo Metro Line Construction Authority. What happened to the Mid-City Expo Line Construction Authority? What happened to the Mid-City Expo Line project? You know, you bring it up and you get no answers because if we stay quiet, if the council stays quiet enough, maybe the voices will go away. So, in order to meet the council's agenda, I have a suggestion for the public. When you get your tax bill, when you get a bill from the city, when you get a ticket from the city, just put Mid-City on it. And when they call you to court, just say Mid-City. The council did it with the Expo line construction, where there was no discussion, none whatsoever, at LACMTA. Imagine if they had called it the Aqua Line, like somebody, or excuse me, the Rose Line, like somebody had once suggested. What a knucklehead, we'd have a mid-city Rose Line? What kind of knucklehead idea would that? But again, please correct me if I'm wrong. When you corrected me regarding the Mid-City Construction Authority that you had in your agenda item from Friday, May 15th, you failed to correct the agenda item itself, so I guess the language passes. Again, two different names for one project. Review the LA City Marathon. You have two different companies with the exact same letters succeeding each other, but they're two different companies, the exact same monogram. Here you have two different names for one project. It is what it is when the city council says it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sachs. Mr. Rosendahl.
We're sort of going to have a little discussion, Mr. Parks and I, about this. As you can see, it has to do with the Expo line, and it has to do with the seats we have on the Expo line. CD5 and CD11 are Phase 2 of the Expo line. Phase 2 of the Expo line, EIR is in the process of happening. Both myself and I can't speak for the new elected CD5 guy, we're a bit upset, and we've gone public about it, of how they're looking at the stops in our part of the city. And what I mean is the discussions that have been going on have impacted us. And so Mr. Parks and I have had a good conversation, and Ms. Perry and I have had a good conversation about who we are and our alternate positions. Our hope is, as soon as it's practical, we would be the main players on whatever happens in CD5 and happens in CD11. As it presently goes, CD5 is going to get a stop that we thought we were going to get in CD11 at the initial discussions here. There's a lot of problems about it. And then the other one, which is the only one now still left in my district, is at Olympic and Bundy. And we have some real concerns because they don't want to put parking at all there, which is total lunacy, that we have to work on and deal with. So I just wanted, from that standpoint, for Mr. Parks and I in a public forum, to just discuss the whole issue of Expo Line Phase 1 and Expo Line Phase 2.
Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. I think it's probably one of the most important projects that we've seen over time. It's 15 years down the line. And I think it is important that you and the new council member in the 5th take a very active role as Phase 2 is going on. But I think we also have to be considerate on Phase 1 that CD9, 8, 9, and 10 have to ensure that Phase 1 is in place and operational, and as we've sent a clear message that we're not going to build Phase 2 differently than we did Phase 1. But I will make a commitment to you that while I'm sitting on the board, and my time should expire somewhere around the third quarter of 2010, where we're thinking about that Phase 1 should be open. I intend to leave the board at that time, but any time between there, if you have an issue on Phase 2, you can come sit in my seat and vote anytime as the alternate and bring your views from the board versus as a spectator or coming in at the podium. So we're not, as far as I know Ms. Perry and myself, we have looked at our districts very closely. We want to make sure they were taken care of as it relates to the issues of parking and landscaping and the train and safety, and we don't think you should have any less input. But again, it would be, I think, premature for either one of us to leave before they open Phase 1. But that offer is open at any time that there's an item. Anytime your staff wants to get briefed on what we get briefed on for these meetings, we're available. But anytime you or the new council member wants to take over one of those seats, and I'll take a little liberty and speak for Ms. Perry, which at her installation yesterday, she said you shouldn't do, but I'm going to do that. I don't think she'd have a concern about the alternates coming on the issues that affect Phase 2.
In fact, Ms. Perry, Madam President, has been very clear with me that she is exactly where you are, Mr. Parks, that wherever the coordination needs to happen, we in Phase 2 are very anxious to be at the table when the discussion has to do with the EIR for Phase 2.
You have my commitment. If it's one item or the whole agenda, you or the other council member that's coming in could be there, because I think you should have as much input as we've had in our district.
And I appreciate that, and I say to my constituents in CD11, stay focused, because we've got to get that Expo line to the beach, and it is so important for us to work on our congestion issues, and that as we continue in the next year to 2 years, the decisions will be made as to what Phase 2 will look like. Thank you, Mr. Parks.
Thank you very much. That item is now before us. Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes. 11 ayes. Thank you. Next item?
Madam President, you wish to adjourn the special and go back to the regular?
Yes, please.
And the first item called special on the regular is item 2, called special for cards.
Yes, Mr. Sachs, downtown, item number 2.
I believe I also put a card in on item number 1, Madam Chair. But item number 2, I'm concerned here. First, it's a 10-year period that you're going to lease the site, or turn the site over to the health clinic for a 10-year period, which is consistent with a 5-year implementation plan for the CD9 RPA. 10-year period for a 5-year plan. But more importantly, I'm concerned about the city property being sold to the CRA, who is going to be ceding the property to the clinic. At the end of the 10-year period, pay attention, public, at the end of the 10-year period, when the property reverts back to its owner, who would that be? That wouldn't be the city, that would be the CRA. Why is the city, again, giving up its right to its property to the CRA, one of the most corrupt agencies in the country? Why is the city allowing the CRA to be the seller when it's a city property? What will happen to the property then? What high-rise will go in place of it?
Thank you. That item is now before us. Mr. Parks, did you call on this one? Thank you.
I would just like to clarify a couple of things. First of all, on this project, to show you how long it's been, Rita Walters started it, and it was in CD9. So that gives you an idea of the context. The property was bought by block grant money for just under $200,000 to allow a clinic in an area that has 70% of the people without health care. When this deal was cut to allow this clinic to continue, they had to pay market value, which is $800,000, which the money was basically accrued from tax increments to pay. CRA paid for it, so block grant was reimbursed by the rules of 5 to 6 times more than what the original cost was. But this clinic serves over 30,000 people in the community that has little health care, and it's important to all of us that they continue to serve, and they're going to invest in that property now that it becomes their ownership, to where they will expand that clinic so they can give more services. The property does not revert to anyone. It basically becomes the property of UMA Clinic because of the service they're going to provide over the next 10 years. So the speaker was in error on a couple of points. For the public's concern and for that community, you have a clinic that's serving 30,000 people, a small cost of tax increment that came from the district they're serving to buy the property, well over the value of what it was purchased initially by the city. So CRA does not own it, it's owned by the clinic, which then gives them the ability to expand it at a future date.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. And Mr. Sachs, item number 1, the mayor has already signed the budget. So we now have this item before us. Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes. 11 ayes. Thank you. Next item.
Item 10, called special for Councilmember Cardenas.
Mr. Cardenas.
Yes, I'd like the staff to come forward. I know this was covered in the Transportation Committee quite a bit, but can you bring us up to speed and let us know where we stand today when it comes to the right-of-ways? And I say right-of-ways because it seemed like there's various jurisdictions on the Orange Line. And the issue here is the community around the Van Nuys area along that experiences the Orange Line brought it to our attention that there were some homeless issues and some debris issues and some cleanup issues and maintenance issues along the Orange Line. Is this thing on? Okay. And so can you bring us up to speed as to where we are today and the status of those concerns?
Sure. Michelle Mallory with the Department of Transportation, and my colleague,
Paul Michigan, Department of Transportation, Biker's Office.
Since the council member introduced the motion, we've done a number of things. It started by convening a meeting with your office and all the parties concerned, bringing them all to the table so we could talk about all the issues. We had the neighborhood prosecutor, we had the sheriff's, Metro, within the city family, the Bureau of Street Services, the Department of Transportation, and a number of others. After that first meeting and hashing out all the issues and addressing various situations, we decided the best thing to do was go out and walk the facility and determine where all the problems were and one by one pick off the items to be dealt with. In the staff report on the item, we came to a number of things that we had to deal with that are addressed within the staff report. For instance, one of the things that within the research that we found was that Metro didn't allow us to make changes to the ongoing landscaping without their approval. So we had them on site, they're going back and they're looking and they're going to allow us to make changes to the landscaping. We have a landscape contractor out there, and by the way, a major cleanup was done by a number of folks, including the landscape contractor, and everything has been cleaned up since.
And on that cleanup, I think the sheriffs were also contributing to making sure everything went well?
Absolutely, they were out there. The landscape contractor recommended short-term solutions that we did have money for and did those, but he also recommended some long-term solutions that we don't have the money for or the authority to pay him for. And he submitted a bid to us that we provided to your office, and your office is looking at funding for long-term changes in the landscape design.
And when you say long-term, what kind of term are you talking about? And then can you give us round figures of roughly what the magnitude of that?
Well, the overall would be a change to the landscape design. Right now we have some large-scale shrubs and bushes that are providing hiding places for the transient population, and the idea would to be change some of that with Metro's approval.
The cost estimate is around $22,000.
$22,000?
Yes.
Okay, so for those changes that will have a long-term effect?
Correct.
Right.
Okay. Your staff is continuing to look at paying for that and doing the long-term thing. Your staff is also committed to working with the property owner at Costco. We have a problem with trash blowing out of their refuge area, which is directly next to the bicycle path, and it seems to blow out of their refuge area and blow onto the bike path. So your staff is committed to working with them directly to get some sort of covers on their containers to help solve with the litter problem there. In addition, we have a tree on a private property that shades the bicycle path and provides a lounge area, if you were, for the transient population, and your staff is working with the property owner there either to trim or cut back that tree to provide less of a welcoming area for the transit.
Now, one thing that I'd like to get clear for the ACLU folk who are watching this dialogue, and we're talking about people who are homeless and who are living on this path, along this pathway, is there any danger to people living right there next to this busway and the bikeway, etc.? Is there a danger to both the passengers and also the people who are hanging out there?
We don't believe so. This certainly isn't our area of expertise, but the neighborhood prosecutor was out there, has informed us these are not long-term homeless people who are living there. What they are telling us is the folks that there are day laborers who are essentially gone during the day, leaving some possessions and coming back and using the area as a crash pad. They don't believe that's a problem. Nonetheless, LAPD and the sheriff are all working together to address those problems with the neighborhood prosecutor, and we're looking at having them not use this as a long-term crash pad.
Okay. What's the distance between the busway and the bikeway and the people who are utilizing the space?
The busway, the physical right-of-way is separated. The busway actually has a fence between the bike path, which actually has a pedestrian area and the bike path. The pedestrian and bike path are 17 feet, and the landscaping area comes and goes. Some of it can be as narrow as 3 to 4 feet, and some of it can be as deep as 12 to 15 feet, so it varies. In some of the areas, I would say, where we are having the transient population in, I would say they're within 10 feet of the bikeway.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, I just wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to let the public know that a lot of these issues came out of the voice of the public. We're responding to that. We've had plenty of people come together, private industry, public agencies such as county agencies and also city agencies, and quite a bit of cleanup has been done. And but beyond that, it's not just about letting people think that it's only a temporary issue. We are, in fact, working on the long-term solutions, and it looks like there should be some end in sight, but with all due respect, we have to get to the point where we have those solutions in place, the dollars identified, and then we'll be able to make the long-term changes. But there's a lot of work going on, and a lot of people are still working on this. We have not abandoned this, and I just wanted to thank you very much for all your work. Thank you.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Madam President. And Councilman Cardenas, can you come back here, folks? We're not done yet. The orange line and the bikeway continue past Balboa to Warner Center, and soon it'll continue up Canoga into Chatsworth. We've had a problem in our district, the 3rd Council District. MTA maintains the vegetation. There's been a big problem maintaining that area along the bikeway. There's a little strip there, and there's an argument who's responsible for it. It's supposed to be the City of Los Angeles, and they do hit-and-miss maintenance along the bikeway with the vegetation adjacent to the curb from my district, which starts basically at White Oak and continues west through Warner Center. The concern is that area, and then in the new orange line that's being reviewed for implementation, north-south corridor along Canoga. Whatever we do, the busway is maintained in a very nice manner by MTA. The vegetation's maintained, any graffiti is removed immediately. But that strip that we have from the bikeway to the curb, where we have some vegetation, that's in normally the land of wander, and it just wanders with weeds. So how do we extend this through so the entire orange line from North Hollywood through the West San Fernando Valley, and then that new addition we're going to put either, I think it should be MTA handle it all, because you're talking about a little strip adjacent to the bikeway, but somehow there's a separation between authority and powers and who's going to maintain and pick the weeds and et cetera. So what Councilmember Cardenas brought up is part of it. The other part continues into the West Valley. We get complaints about the weeds growing and nothing being done about it. Can you respond to that?
We have a contractor on board who is, excuse me, I'm Paul Mishkin, the Department of Transportation. We have a contractor on board who was a temporary contract, who's maintained the bike path from Chandler, City of Burbank, border of City of Burbank, all the way to Warner Center. And we are working on awarding a long-term contract, a 5-year contract to cover the whole project. This contractor will be paying him on a month-to-month basis until we have a long-term contractor on board, which will be no later than October 1st.
So we now have it that's on a month-to-month all the way to Warner Center?
Right.
Okay, in the new addition where we're going to do the north-south line along Canoga, is there some way we can arrange to have MTA, because they're taking care of everything except that one little strip.
That's true.
How do we have them take care of that one little strip in addition to the vegetation along the orange line adjacent to the bus line where they have the walls separating that from the property owners?
One of the things that we found out in the first version of this is that while Metro owns the majority of right-of-way, there are small pieces of the right-of-way that belong to the city. And we didn't know that at the time until Metro went ahead and built the facility and then didn't landscape certain sections. Right. We can investigate with Metro to determine if they have tried to figure out that this piece of property belongs to the city, and then we can contact our partners in the Bureau of Street Services, because if it is the city's, Bureau of Street Services should probably do the maintenance on it until the bikeway is built and we deal with the maintenance issues along there.
I think once we get that complete, we should have whatever, a JP, a joint project agreement, labor agreement, something with the MTA, because it seems ridiculous where you're going to see vegetation adjacent to the busway manicured, and you see the other part with the weeds, which is most visible to the public driving down and walking down the roadway, and adjacent to the bike path. Now, the bike path is wonderful. People use it. People walk it. It's just that we get complaints from the neighbors about the vegetation being overgrown with weeds.
When we initially conceived the project, the idea, well, there are a couple of ideas that were floated, but our first choice was actually to use Metro's contractor. While the city agreed to maintain the bikeway and provide for ongoing operations on the bikeway, we had hoped we could pay Metro's contractor to do both at once.
Right.
So they were maintained at the same level, and, trash wasn't blown one way, but Metro didn't agree to that. Metro didn't want us to do that, so we went to the fallback arrangement, which is what we have now.
Okay.
We'd love to work with Metro on an ongoing agreement to let us use the same contractor and work together, but we haven't been able to make progress on that. We could use some help.
Well, I think what we're going to do, since they're in negotiations now at the beginning, the start of this north-south corridor along Canoga, that we have some leverage, and we'll use that leverage because they need to have the assistance of the city, and we have to sign off on this also, because they want to do some modification of the roadway, the city roadway. So maybe we can use that leverage to have them take care of it. It should be one contractor. It's ridiculous to have this strip by this contractor and the rest of it by another contractor. And they do a nice job maintaining the MTA property. It's just that the city property, it gets ignored, and that creates the problem and the concern from the community.
Mr. Zine, you want to respond, Mr. Cardenas? Mr. Reyes is here, and we did have a discussion in committee on the MTA involvement and cost reimbursement. We have MTA, I think they've heard their officials are here today.
Because they're getting ready to start.
Yeah,
So, Mr. Cardenas, and we'll go to Mr. Reyes.
But at the same time, these they're not just meetings for the sake of meetings. We're actually making progress. So what we'd like to do, I think it'd be a great opportunity to invite your office to be a part of the meetings as well, because it sounds like we have the same exact problem. Right. It just happens to be, in a different part of the segment. But we're going to lose a quorum pretty soon, and maybe if your staff will apprise you of the next meetings or what have you, and then we can all be in the meeting.
Fine.
We'll all make the same amount of progress at the same time.
Great. Okay. Thank you. That's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Madam President. I think this scenario is indicative of how, I hate to say this, but our presence on the MTA board doesn't seem to make a difference in how the MTA folks, the Metro, is responding to our city. Here we have two districts. We're asking for a level of coordination. They choose not to do it, and we're stuck with this dilemma. I think it's imperative that perhaps this becomes one of those tests to see how responsive MTA can be to our concerns. Colleagues, I know you're working through this. It's very sensitive. I'm not familiar with the details, but having a resolution, if it gets to that point, is an alternative. That the body of this city wants its areas and corridors taken care of as much as what the MTA is taking care of, because to separate like this is ridiculous.
That's what they're doing. You're right.
The community sees this as one corridor.
Right.
It's not this agency versus that agency, or this city versus that agency. Yet we sit on that MTA board. So a strong letter to our representatives, making them aware of our concern, that we would hope they could cooperate, is something that should be at our disposal. And I guess I'm just speaking out of frustration sometimes, because if we're all acting as individual districts, we're not as strong as we're acting as one council. And I think that's very significant, especially when you have MTA board members who are sitting in this council that could also be supporting us. So I just want to share those thoughts, because I think strategically we shouldn't be spinning our wheels or chasing our own tails. We should be very focused as to what our MTA board member representatives can do and what we need to have done, especially in these scenarios where they're just being told flat out, we don't want to do it that way. And I don't think that's appropriate. Thank you very much.
Your point.
Thank you. Ms. Rosendahl? And colleagues, just to remind everyone, a couple of you are planning on leaving at noon, and we will not have a quorum.
Yeah, just real quickly, I know Mr. Weezar is now on the MTA board, and we had this in committee, and obviously we worked it through, and you guys have done a great job, and I appreciate what you do. We obviously need a stronger connection with MTA, appreciating, frankly, that we're in this together. It's a partnership, and this is as important an issue to us as anything else. And Mr. Weezar, who I know is here in the room, that he will take that leadership for us and discuss it and bring it back to us as an item for us to continue to discuss. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl. I think the issue as well is when the Orange Line was developed, this, at that time, should have been clearly stated, and I think that Mr. Cardenas, with his leadership, and the rest of the Transportation Committee and others, and Mr. Zine, making sure that it is, we look at the whole Orange Line. And the same would be for Mr. Reyes, the Gold Line, as well as the Expo Line. Those issues will be decided now. This, unfortunately, is an after the fact, where we were not here when the contracts were determined, but there is an opportunity for those two.
Yep.
Thank you very much. This item is now before us. Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes. 10 ayes. Thank you. Next item?
Item 16, call special for cards.
Yes, we have two cards. Dr. Clyde Williams, downtown, followed by Miriam Fogler and Donna Pearman. Mr. Williams.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Clyde Williams, 4115 Barrett Road in El Sereno, Northeast LA. Special events. Every three days a week, you approve 30 to 40,000, sometimes more, dollars every day. 3 days a week, 150 days a year. That works out to about $5 million a year is spent through the City Council for special events in the neighborhoods. This is a budget that's equivalent to the total budget for each year for the neighborhood councils. $5 million again. This was also the same amount as the city clerk wanted to hold the elections only for 89 neighborhood councils. I think we could do it better through the neighborhood councils, and I think that the additional budget of $30,000 every 3 days a week would be gratefully accepted by the neighborhood councils. We have, in fact, been proponents of both the Loomis Day, which will be on Sunday this week, as a special event in Northeast LA, and in about 8 days, on Saturday of week after next, will be the Peace in Northeast LA March. We hope that all of the City Council will take those two events into consideration. And yes, the neighborhood councils have been sponsoring those mostly. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Fogler, followed by Ms. Pearman.
Yeah, well, I was very brief on public comment, but I really am really seriously focusing here because we need to worry about the services for our city here, and if we, like Eric Garcetti said, that we have to keep the city open, and if that means cutting these fees, Dennis Zine, can you hear what I'm saying, please? Okay, because you need to understand we need to cut out these fee waivers. I know how much we want our project, these special goodies here, but there's priorities here. We need to take that into consideration, that we need to have the libraries open, we need the parks open, so that the kids have something and that the kids have a library to go to. My kid, she's almost 16, she's going to want these kind of sources, and she's going to need it. So we can't have these fee waivers continuing. He needs to put a moratorium, the mayor. He's not being very open here, and I think we need to have a recall of this mayor. He doesn't want to sit down with the unions and work this out with the budget. He just wants to ram it through and doesn't want to confront the issue.
Madam President, she's not talking about fee waivers.
I am so, absolutely am, because he doesn't want to confront the issue here. He just wants to slam it through the budget, and he doesn't want to confront the issue that we need to get rid of the fee waivers, period. And you got these called out recovery and reinvestment projects. Is another thing you need. That's another pork barrel needs to be gone, because you're talking about putting people on this layoffs and all this. He doesn't even want to be open-minded, this mayor. And he's thinking about running for governor. Forget it, because I want to sign a
Madam President,
petition
she
to
still
recall
is
him.
not talking about the special event motions.
Sure am. It has very much to do with it. He's not putting a moratorium on them, and I object to it. So
These are council actions that are before us. Thank you. Ms. Pearman?
Okay. Again, it looks like our city council's already furloughed because they're running out of council meetings, or they went to other committee meetings, so it's hard to say. Again, we have our fee waivers. We have a fiscal disaster. We shouldn't be rushing in all these fee waivers before the July deadline. I realize they're trying to make people feel good, life goes on, etc. But until we get our city in order, you can at least afford $25,000 for a nice annual bed awards. That's $25,000. Though I had to commend the city council for 5 events being reimbursed, I can't believe Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey is on the agenda. Shouldn't they have been in our dog and pony show? We can use painted clowns in council. Hopefully the council, mayor, and the unions can find a middle ground. In the meantime, I don't feel people who are party at these events should pay for... I don't feel people who don't party at these events should be paying for the ones who do. We can't afford to have our police and fire used for special event fee waivers, so to close streets. So, maintain order. We could use that money to help our city employees. We don't need furloughs. It's hard, and layoffs. It's hard to say how much of that $100,000 used on extra fire and police, how much is that used on fee waivers. We can't, this man's going on, and it goes on in the millions. Isn't anybody saying that maybe this the part of the reason why the city is running out of money and getting in a fiscal disaster is because we have these special event fee waivers? I mean, can we look at them and say, how much can this be paid other ways, other than just having this city? I bet there's a lot of private industry would love to get recognition and get a tax break at the same time. So, for once, I don't see why we can't at least one line them and take some out, or just say no to fee waivers altogether. Let's stop right now. In July, no more.
Thank you. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam President. One thing, colleagues, is that for our new policy that was going to go in effect July 1st, because street service is not going to be operational July 1st, there's going to be a 30-day period to where we're going to be kind of in between or betwixt in between. But as of August 1st, the subsidy program should be in place. Many of these, even those that are listed in August that are being approved today, I've actually asked for reimbursement by the sponsor. So they're not all waivers. Some are. We gave guidance during the budget hearings that through June 30th, that waivers would be appropriate. After July 1st, that we go to the subsidy program. But again, there will be a short period while street service... What's that?
July 1st is a cap on these waivers.
Well, the thing is, as of July 1st, the secondary street neighborhood block clubs should pick up their own equipment, do this with their insurance policy, and cost the city nothing. Once they return their equipment, or these barricades, they then can get their reimbursement of the deposit. Those that are on primary streets are those that would be nonprofits. Then it's up to the council office to decide whether they want to subsidize 50%, but the vendor will have to pay 50%. Then those that, such as we have today on BET, next year, because they're for-profit, it's all on their dime as opposed to the city waiving or subsidizing anything. But we felt that with the system that's in place, that we gave people forewarning as to the system through June 30th, but next year, all of those will have to be a contract and a negotiation as to them paying the city because they're a for-profit organization.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. That item is now before us. Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes. 10 ayes. Thank you. Next item. Yes.
President, I just wanted to ask that item 24 go super forthwith, please. Thank you.
Super forthwith. Okay. I think our next item was item number 19, called special by card. Mr. Sachs? Yes, 2 and 23 will go forthwith. Mr. Sachs, downtown. Item number 19.
Yeah, thank you. Just a point of clarification in my earlier discussion, because this regards what's on topic and off topic. I was reading from the agenda item here regarding the health clinic, and it states in its agenda to provide health care services for his term not to exceed 10 years. That's in paragraph 3, line Section B, and Section C stated, transfer the site to the UMMA after acquisition by the CRA. And I was corrected on both.
That's not on this item.
Madam Chair, please pay attention. I was mentioning, I'm trying to find out what is off topic and what is on topic. If I'm reading something from the agenda, I would imagine it's on topic. Back to this item, so why was I corrected? Back to this item, 19, the DWP. Again, while you're discussing DWP, when is the question going to come up about the solar initiative plan, reworking it? When is the plan going to come into effect? When is the discussion going to continue with LAWA about the acreage at
Madam
Palmdale
President,
Airport?
he's not talking about the DWP trunk line work program.
Topic, am I off topic? That's what I'm trying to find out.
You're off topic.
Well, see, now you can clarify it.
You're off topic, so please continue.
Okay.
And he should be warned for violating the rules of decorum.
And what rule was that, sir? Mr. City Council Attorney?
You are engaging in impertinent, or talking about impertinent topics to this item.
And who would be the one deciding what is impertinent, Mr. City Council Attorney?
Madam President, this isn't a discussion. He should just be warned.
What is my warning for, Madam Chair?
Okay, trunk line work, that is before us. You have 6 seconds.
Trunk line work. Council work. Honesty.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes. 10 ayes. Thank you. Next item?
Item 22, called special for cards.
Mr. Sachs, I believe you have 1 minute left? 2 minutes. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Sachs.
I'll try to control my impertinence for the benefit of the City Council Attorney. The Quimby fees, coming from item 22. As related to the Grand Avenue project where the park was being developed before the actual construction of the buildings, is an area been picked out for the Quimby fees that are going to be collected for this? Is a park area going to be considered for the Quimby fees before the construction? I happen to think that's a darn good idea. I saved myself there. That you should develop the parkland before the construction of the buildings, like you're doing with the Grand Avenue project. Where they can come up with that much money when they can't float a loan to build any buildings is beyond me, but that's that's off topic.
That's correct. This is on the project on Vineland and Archwood.
Open to learning from the wonderful City Council. Too bad the City Council is not open to learning from the public. But again, is there a discussion regarding the Quimby fees? Is there a discussion regarding a parkland project that can be purchased? Shouldn't you consider that, or will I be corrected on that also?
This is a tract map. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, this item is now before us. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes. 10 ayes. Thank you. Next items? I know we want to reconsider an item that was on Wednesday that had been continued. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, Madam President. Item number 27 from Wednesday, the Ward Wallace settlement discussion. Council file number 09-1132 was continued to next Wednesday. We now are requesting that it be reconsidered so that it could be continued to next Tuesday instead.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you could open the roll on reconsideration, close the roll, and tabulate the votes. 10 ayes. Thank you. That item is now before us, and we will continue that item to next Tuesday. Thank you. Next items.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
They'll be posted and referred.
The desk is clear.
Thank you. Announcements. Yes, we'll go this. We'll start with you, Mr. Rosendahl. We usually go the other way. We'll start with you, Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you very much. I just want to announce that we now know it is June 5th. Robert Kennedy got killed on this day 41 years ago. I had the privilege of being with Paul Schrade last week, who was with the senator. I was there in the room. I worked for the senator, and we looked at the Ambassador Hotel location where they're building this incredible school complex. It's so beautiful. We're going to open up the K through 5th grade in September of '09, and the final complex will be completed in September of 2010. I spoke to Max Kennedy about it earlier this week. The whole family's over at Hyannisport right now. now. Max was 3 years old when his father passed, and just want to acknowledge today as that. Switching gears, another announcement I want to make is we have our new Phase 3 water reality in place of the drought. And I was driving here, and there was somebody out there watering at 9:45 in the morning. No watering at all from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., period. You can hand water before 9 and after 4 with a shut-off valve, and Mondays and Thursdays the sprinklers can be used, but all before 9 and after 4. Thank you.
Sorry, yes.
There's a rally today at 5 p.m. in front of the Hollywood Forever Cemetery to protest the state cuts on HIV/AIDS programs. For more information, please call 213-639-6709. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes.
I just want to acknowledge Deloitte. It's a major corporation that is providing a significant community service, and that they are helping provide a cleanup program. They're actually improving areas around Albion Elementary School. They have a kids' carnival for the youth for Albion at State Historic Park. They're also working at John Leahy Middle School, the Salvation Armory Red Shield Community Center, and other sites throughout the city of Los Angeles. So I just want to acknowledge them publicly. Deloitte does this every year. If every corporation took the time as Deloitte to provide this kind of community spirit and clean up our public facilities, our schools, our parks, it'd be a dramatic change for the city of Los Angeles. So my hat's off to Deloitte.
Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple items that we invite the public to. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., opening ceremony, American Cancer Society Relay for Life at Pierce College. Everyone's invited to participate in that American Cancer Society event. Also, there are a couple other events I wanted to bring to the public's attention. On Sunday, we have in the San Fernando Valley a Jewish World Watch Walk for Darfur. That's going to take place at Pierce College, also starting at 8 a.m., and I want to also remind them of the football game, and I think one of my colleagues is going to be at that football game on Sunday, the Valley Youth Conference All-Star football game. Mr. Cardenas, you're going to be there? It's going to be the East versus the West. It's going to take place at Birmingham High on Sunday, and I show here at 3 o'clock, so everyone's invited to come out and see the East versus the West. Thank you, Madam President. Have a good weekend.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alarcon. Mr. Cardenas?
Adjourning.
No?
Adjourning motion?
No. Announcements, Mr. Cardenas and Mr. LeBlanc on announcements?
Yes, I have an announcement. Thank you. Tomorrow, on June 6th, is the first public meeting for information. It's a workshop. Tomorrow, June 6th, here on the corner of Sylvan and Van Nuys Boulevard, here at the Marvin Browdy Center in Van Nuys, which is 6262 Van Nuys Boulevard. The first meeting is at 9 a.m. to 12 noon. It'll be in English. And the second one will be 1 to 4 p.m. in Spanish, and it has to do with the East Valley Region Home Ownership Opportunity Program, which is Councilmember Alarcon put together $1 million, and myself put together $1 million to help families to buy homes in the 6th and 7th Council District in selected areas. This is CRA funding, and it's going to be helping families and individuals with up to $75,000 for down payment assistance so they can enter into some of these homes. Again, tomorrow, June 6th, 9 a.m. in English and 1 o'clock in Spanish here at the Browdy Center on the corner of Sylvan and Van Nuys Boulevard.
Mr. LeBlanc and then Mr. Reyes.
Yeah, thank you very much. As Mr. Zine mentioned, throughout the Southern California area, the American Cancer Society is having their Relay for Life. In the Grizzly Park area at the Mulholland Fountain will be a Relay for Life as well. Check your local listings for the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life. Also, I'd like to announce that George Nicolai from KNX is being awarded Top Broadcaster of the Year tomorrow by the Broadcasters of Southern California. There's also going to be a great auto car show, and I know Mr. Parks would love it, at 3rd and Fairfax at the Farmers Market for the 50th Annual Gilmore Heritage Auto Show. And tomorrow night, twice the Citizen Banquet will be held for the honor reserves like Officer Greg Smith and Officer Dennis Zine and others at the Peterson Museum. Sunday, everyone's invited to the Farmers Market in the Grove for our annual Culture Day for our 25 sister cities to celebrate their art, dance, and music, and we thank everyone for their participation. And Mr. Rosendahl, I have a confession. I did wash my wife's car this morning, and I did have the right contraption on the hose. But then after I finished, it started to rain, so it got me that way, but I didn't.
Before 9? Just before 9.
It was well before 9.
Mr. Reyes.
I wanted to make sure I didn't forget the Loomis Day in Northeast, the Sycamore Grove Park. It's Loomis Day that celebrates Northeast Los Angeles. It's a cultural event. A lot of artists, food, dance. Charles Loomis is the first librarian of the city of Los Angeles. Actually, is the founder of the Southwest Museum. So it's a great event, and welcome to Northeast Sycamore Grove Park.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Parks, and then, I'm sorry, Ms. Cardenas, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'd just like to announce that in Leimert Park, the third annual Artist and Authors Fair will be at 10 o'clock, be all day long. And also, we have a brand-new farmers market on the south lawn of Exposition Park in front of the museum. And so we invite all the public to come out to the new farmers market and also the book fair in Leimert Park.
Thank you. Mr. Cardenas?
On behalf of the district that hosts this once-a-month meeting of the City Council, I just wanted to say thank you very much to Wendy Gruhl. This is your last meeting of the City Council. As a member of the City Council, I'm sure you'll be here for other purposes, but
In the Valley.
Yeah, here in the Valley, in our Van Nuys chambers. So thank you very much, Wendy.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. And you're stuck with me for a few more weeks. Mr. Zine, would you like to mention Sunday morning in your district, the Darfur?
I did that.
You
I
did?
did that. You weren't paying attention?
I clearly was. Oh.
Well, you know what? If you give me the time, I'll do it again. I said
It's a
that.
great event,
I'll say
Darfur.
a Jewish World Walk for Darfur, Sunday morning. That's at Pierce College, 8 a.m. at Pierce College. That's the Jewish World Walk for Darfur.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that again. Seeing my last...
Darfur.
Mr. Rosendahl.
For me, Carnival, which is an incredible event in Venice, will be this Saturday, tomorrow, June 6th, from noon to 10 o'clock on Windward, Circle in the Windward area. It's like a doodad type thing, a lot of fun for everybody. Come on down to Venice tomorrow, be there from 10, from noon to 10 at night, have some fun. I'll be there too, mixing and mingling. Carnival, Venice Beach.
Thank you very much. I think that's we're finished. We do have adjourning motions. If I could ask everyone to please rise in the council chambers, please. Mr. Alcon.
Colleagues, it is with great sadness, but also with great celebration of a tremendous life, that I recognize somebody who isn't a household name, happened to be a very good friend of Bobby Kennedy's, Jack Henning. Jack Henning was known as a lion of the labor movement. His work and influence in the labor movement over the last 70 years is a testament to that description. Jack Henning passed away yesterday, June 4th, in his sleep. He was 93 years old. Jack was a pioneering leader of the labor movement in California. From 1970 to 1996, he served as Secretary-Treasurer of the California Labor Federation, representing over 2 million workers. He was not shy about standing up for the poor or the working class. He was a consistent voice for social justice and the underprivileged. Jack was born in San Francisco in 1915, the descendant of 4 Irish grandparents and union members. Jack's father was a charter member of the Plumbers Union, and his mother's father was an early member of the famous Teamster Local 85. Not long after graduating from St. Mary's College, Jack joined his first union in 1938, the United Federal Workers of the CIO, while working with the Association of Catholic Unionists in San Francisco. During the 1860s, his paternal grandfather, Thomas Henning, from Rathfirland County Down, was a proud member of the O'Neill Brigade, which was the local Irish militia unit in San Francisco. Thomas Henning inspired his grandson with a love and passion for Ireland's culture, history, and struggle for freedom. In the 1940s, Jack became active in the Knights of the Red Branch, advocating for the release of Irish political prisoners and the end of the British rule in Northern Ireland. In 1959, Jack was named by Governor Pat Brown as the director of the the California State Department of Industrial Relations. In 1962, Jack was named Under-Secretary of Labor during and under President John F. Kennedy. He served in that position until 1967, when he was appointed ambassador to New Zealand by President Lyndon Johnson. Upon his return from New Zealand, he was elected as head of the California AFL-CIO in 1970. He retained that position for 26 years, vigorously advocating the cause of working class. As the heart of the Labor Federation, Jack played an instrumental role in helping the United Farm Workers gain passage of the State Agricultural Relations Act and fought to restore the state's Worker Safety Agency in 1988 after it was abolished by then-Governor Deukmejian. Jack was very involved in many efforts. He helped establish an Irish history course at St. Mary's College. He was instrumental in organizing the effort to install the headstone for Irish patriot Thomas Desmond at Holy Cross, and as Undersecretary of Labor, he coordinated the effort to erect a statue of Robert Emmet in Washington, D.C. Over the years, Jack Henning has been honored by many Irish organizations and was named Grand Marshal of the St. Patrick's Day Parade in San Francisco. Jack co-founded the Irish Literary and Historical Society in 1945, which still flourishes today. His activities were not solely confined to Ireland and labor. However, he had tremendous support for the Jewish community, and the Histadrut, I hope I said that correctly, Histadrut movement earned him honors from Israel's government and many Jewish organizations, including the Torch of Liberty Award from the Anti-Defamation League. The United States gave Jack Henning and his family opportunities that would not have been possible in British-occupied Ireland, and it has always been the United States which is foremost in his heart. From 1977 to 1989, Jack served as a member of the University of California Regents, where he fought for affirmative action policies and the divestiture of the University of California system out of South Africa because of its policy of apartheid. He is survived by 7 children, and most notably, Pat Henning was my chief of staff in Sacramento and now serves as the director of the Employment Development Department. We should all be as fortunate to have 93 years of activity as he did, and although, as I said, he's not a household name, he had tremendous impact on each and every one of our lives, particularly the quality of our workplace. He was a tremendous champion for the working class, and although I am saddened, I am, as I just told his son while driving over here, celebrating a tremendous life.
Thank you. All members. Adjourning motions. Mr. Zine.
Thank you, Madam President. Request for your adjourned memory, Malone Tanzini, longtime Elvira Street merchant, passed away May 23rd after a brief illness. Born in Philadelphia in 1920, the Italian-American fought valiantly in the United States Army during World War II. After arriving in Los Angeles in the early 1930s, befriended Elvira Street matriarch Christine Sterling and soon established a business at the Mexican marketplace selling wrought iron, art prints, and posters. Personalized novelty newspapers, headlines delighted visitors. Tanzini was a skilled carpenter who helped build some of the street's original center merchant booths, or pustos. Originally, he photographed the numerous celebrities and dignitaries that visited Elvira Street, regarded Elvira Street as his home, recalled with great clarity great moments in the street's history, including the arrival of First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, President John F. Kennedy. Was an active participant in many of Elvira Street's traditional events, such as Las Positas and the Blessing of the Animals. Unfaltering positivity, kind words, and bright smile will be sorely missed. Survived by a daughter, Carolina Ross, son, Maloney Mark Tanzini. May Malone Tanzini rest in peace. All members?
All members. Any other adjourning motions? If not, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. And this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.